an objective, then you can select 2 different battle tactics. And that was like a crash course in the new season for a couple of reasons. First off, sniping GCs proved very effective because you want to get the GCs out on the objectives. It also showed me just how quickly you burn through battle tactics at Stormcast. Like there were no good ones left by the time I got to the last round there. I had to do a burn turn where I had to try to kill Eltharion with a squad of 5 Vanquishers. That was not going to happen. Okay, we're live. We are live.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Hopefully the audio is working. Always have that problem.
Listening in.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, it's been a while.
It has been. How was everyone's New Year? How was everyone's Christmas? Everybody, I'm assuming a lot of people got the new the Battle Force box that came out for Stormcast, so everybody's going to be using Vanquishers and Storm Drakes for the next few months. Should be a good time.
Let's go.
Vanquishers remain 110 points somehow, so they're still going to be the best Redeemer type unit. Vigilors are questionable still, but everything else in that box is solid gold. Knight Relictor definitely looking good this season.
Yeah.
All right. It seems like we got pretty okay audio going on from what I can hear.
That's great. On the topic of Christmas, if people have a little bit of extra money kicking around, you can buy some Stormkeep dice and range sticks on KaijuGamingLounge.com. They are phenomenal. They're our main sponsor. We love working with them. Yep, I've been bringing those to the game store. They are pretty good. And now with Vindictor drops actually being a viable strategy, now that Bounty Hunters is gone, I think I'm gonna get some value out of that 7-inch deployment there, which is gonna be good.
Oh yeah. The clear one is really clean. It's a good look on the tabletop. I don't know how well you can see.
I'm really glad we went with the clear one. It looks great.
Yeah. All the colors look really good. They come out great, and Kaiju support them, supports us. Win-win.
Yep. What was I gonna ask? Dan, did you ever write up how to spray paint those sticks?
I don't think I did, because some of them they can come in this. Basically, this is like the wrapped up version.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do want a custom color here in the actual logo and the the numbering, so if you don't want the gold that can come with it, you can order them with the wrapping on, and literally you can just use any kind of spray paint, any kind of layering. You can even just model paint and literally just brush in, whatever you want. This one's actually done in Runelord Brass. I kind of like the Runelord Brass look on my Stormcast instead of like a pure like Retributor gold, and so it's a little less like flashy, but it gives you that really refined look with the black. I don't know how well I can see it, but yes, you can have them in your own colors if you'd like. Yeah, and it's really easy to do.
We can post pictures of that in the Discord later. Because I've got some with the wrapping still on it, so I kind of want to see how you did it and then do it myself. Yeah. Pavo says, hello from Varshov. Glad I can watch the show live. Cheers, buddy. This is one of the reasons we wanted to do it on a Sunday. It seems like everyone but the Australians are able to watch it this time. I think the Australians are asleep right now, right? That's time zone correctly.
Hey, if you're really committed, I'm supposed to be sleeping right now, and I'm here.
Yeah. Sweet. So Kaiju Gaming Lounge, give them a shout. Check them out. Use code Stormkeep for 15% off orders of Warhammer. If you have any special shipping needs, just contact them. They're super friendly, very easy to talk to. And Carl from Kaiju is probably going to be joining us on our review of the Slaves to Darkness Battle Tome soon. They are knowledgeable players who know what they're doing. They love AOS, so please support them. They're great.
Oh yeah. And I think we mentioned we have discount code. Did you mention the discount code?
Yep. Discount code Stormkeep gets you a small discount. Next order of bookkeeping here. Want to formally announce on the stream that we have our January 2023 painting contest active. Sequitors look better this season. I don't know how much better, but they definitely look better and playable. Bounty Hunters doesn't exist, so you can have big, thick blocks of Sequitors with a 5-up ward in the combat phase and any Storm host. You can give them Estrella and Hammers of Sigmar to give them +1 save. So actually seems like a tactic that you can employ. So we thought, hey, let's see everybody's painted Sequitors. So our painting contest this first one of the year is Sequitors. Just enter the Discord. You can see the link in the description below, and jump in the Painting Sequitors channel, drop your entry with a timestamp, and you have a chance to win fabulous prizes, courtesy of Kaiju Gaming. So we're hoping to do a different painting contest every month, and this no spoilers for the next one, but I think people will be able to guess what the next one will be based on the seasonal rules that we're seeing.
Looking good. Thank you guys. I got some EU folk. Thank you guys for showing up. We're trying to do a little more live streams in this time zone, so thank you so much for showing up and chatting. This season looks really cool. I think that they designed this season a lot better than the last season. The last season seemed a little it was definitely a test for like how are we going to do this focus on units, because the monster season was all right. But it kind of incentivized you to do what you're going to do anyway. And this one seems a little bit different because sometimes you're not always aiming for those small heroes. And against Stormcast, we actively tell you guys like, hey, in the mirror, don't aim for the small heroes. This one's kind of neat,
Yeah.
Oftentimes like battling last season is something good to kill, and also bounty hunters was a little,
Little over the top.
a little, yeah, it had a disparity there. So
Yeah.
I'm curious to see how this season plays. There's so much stuff going on. It seems cool.
I'm terrified. They kept veterans so you can fight in 2 ranks, but they got rid of bounty hunters. And as you can see in the chat poll, that definitely seems like the most important thing about the season. Everybody's voting no more bounty hunters. But oh boy, I think people are going to eat those words when you see blocks of 2x15 Hearthguard Berserkers that are fighting first defensively. You're seeing 2x30 blocks of Blade Guys Revenants that are fighting in 2 ranks, and there's no bounty hunters to deal with them. You're going to see 90 witches as like a thing.
But like the problem with that was that there were, setting aside Doc for a second, there were a lot of armies that their books are well written and the armies are good, and they got just absolutely hammered by bounty hunters. So I'm happy to see it go. And I don't, you know what? It's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. If Fire Slayers are suddenly a 60% win rate army, I'm just going to laugh and roll with it.
I'm okay with units fighting in 2 ranks. I want more stuff on the table, and I hate the idea that the core rules of the game restrict you from using a unit in a way that would be optimal. Like, still, this is a problem with 6-man cavalry units like Gorgruntas, Dracolines, 6-man squads of Fulminators, things like that are very difficult to use because of the coherency rules. And I don't like those rules, because I like the idea of having as many different models on the table as possible. And changing rules is hard, but changing points is really easy, right? So if I'd rather have the game balanced around this unit is really, really good in a squad of 6, and we're going to cost them appropriately to take advantage of that, or to account for that. I'd rather have that paradigm than what we have right now, or previously, I guess, in the last season, where it was like, oh, Evocators, unplayable. You just can't play Evocators at all because of coherency. The Foot Evocators look really good now, but the Dracolines are still a little bit lacking. They just don't have that critical mass of damage, so they're stuck in a weird role. But we'll talk about that later on in the stream. So I guess we should explain what the seasonal rules are for anybody who hasn't been scraping Discord servers and Mongolian basket weaving forums religiously over the past couple weeks. If you're just kind of casually paying attention to what's going on in Age of Sigmar, supposedly the contents of the General's Handbook have been thoroughly leaked, and I will add the caveat here that we are assuming these are, based on what we've seen, these look real. They might be fake. There's still a chance they're fake. But if it's fake, it's the most elaborate fake I've ever seen. A lot of thought went into this if it is false. So we're going to assume it's real. We're going to talk about it like it's real, and I hope I don't have to eat these words later.
Yeah, this would be a really good fake job. Like, holy crap, I'm looking through a couple things, and yeah.
Elaborate and consistently written. Usually when you get fakes, you can tell like there's a way that Games Workshop writes rules, right? It's a very particular way. And if this is fake, then this person has been able to recreate that exact way of writing the rules, because this is very consistent with how they do things. For better or for worse, this is consistent with how they do things.
Absolutely.
So, let's get started. So, what's in the new season? The General's Handbook, Pitched Battles 2022-23 Season 2, which is a terrible name for a book, and I hope we move to a simpler thing. Like, why is this even, like, why don't we just do it by year and then season? Like, why do we have 22-23 Season 1 and then 22-23 Season 2? Is there going to be a 23-24 Season 1 in the summer? Like
why not? Why didn't they just do like General's Handbook 3rd edition Season 1?
Yeah.
Season
why
2?
does it why does it need to be annual?
Because then it doesn't have, you don't have to put a time period on that. That GHB could be good for 3 months or 36 months.
Yeah, like right now you can go back and play stuff like Malign Portents. It's probably going to be really wonky with 3rd edition rules, but you can slap that together. This kind of gives the idea that, oh, it's not 2022, 2023. We'll just discard it.
I can't play this.
Yeah. And it gets even weirder because, they reprinted the Endless Spells completely from the previous book. No changes at all, even after the erratas that occurred. So I guess they missed the timing there. So this is just a weird format of releases. And I hope they simplify it, not just because the name is stupid. Like, try explaining this to a person. Oh, did you pick up Pitch Battle Season 2, 2022, 2023? And then, 6 months from now, there's going to be a new one that's for 2024. It's weird.
Well, you know how critical I can be of GW, but I will say that with regard to how these GHBs are organized, how they are printed and assembled, and the way that they, like the stuff that they contain, I'm still really happy. I think GW is doing a great job with these.
Oh yeah,
they're totally so useful.
Credit where credit's due, especially just the physical product. I love the binding on these books, the way that you can flip them over and like have it kind of in a triangle on the table so you can see rules and deployments so easily. This is a phenomenal product. I hope they keep doing it. I just hope they keep improving on it. There's no reason to keep it the same. You can do a little better.
I don't know if you've seen the 40K book, but it is literally just a paperback.
Yep. It's a printed PDF. It's not good.
You don't get the cool little like tactic. I mean, they don't have like tactics the same way we do, but still, it's a different product, and they still do a good job with that.
I guess we don't need to talk about 40K right now.
No.
There's so much I want to say about that statement that you just made, but
anyways,
we'll talk more about that over the summer, maybe. So what's included in Season 2? That's just, I'm not going to say I'm not going to say the whole thing. I'm just saying Season 2. That's what we're going to call it. If they come out with a Season 1 this summer, whatever. What's included? New battle plans. Mostly new. There's 6 new ones, brand new ones that use the new rules that we're going to talk about here with champions and whatnot. But then there's also 6 coming back from Season 1, and it seems like they picked the best ones from that season.
Yeah.
I have no qualms with any of them. I thought maybe battle lines drawn, there might be an issue, but it seems like they fixed it. They just reworded it, and now it's totally playable, and I have no issues with the returning ones.
I believe this is the first time that we haven't had a no reserves, no limitations battle plan. There's not a no reserves rule. There's not a no teleport rule. Even battle lines drawn, like Paul was talking about, used to have a no teleport rule, and that's gone.
Yep. Now
Which is good. Yeah.
We also don't have, I think, correct me if I'm wrong about this, but I think there's no battle plans that require battle line units to score. There's no battle plans that require behemoths or leaders to score. There is one that requires, like, if you have a champion, nothing else can contest it, but that doesn't mean you need a champion to contest it, right? It's just a tactical benefit to have one.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I think that this is the hybrid of that rule, though, because that's what this is all about, right? Like we had the last book had one, right, that only Galatian veterans could do, and since Galatian veterans were battle line, it basically was the battle line one. The fact that it doesn't require it, though, I think is a good step forward.
That is a good step. On the other hand, though, they made the battle tactics a lot harder.
Yeah, they did.
And I think that's a good thing, because the last 2 seasons, frankly, the battle tactics were so easy that you were max scoring every time you won a game, and it just didn't really matter. It was like, how do you max score rather than do you max score?
or
Mhm.
that was the decider, right? Like games were decided by who failed their battle tactic.
Hmm. Yeah. So
Which,
this time,
yeah.
sorry, go ahead, Dan.
I was gonna say, like, that's not necessarily like the worst thing. I think that it wasn't necessarily, it was that who really messed up, right? Like it didn't feel like it was almost like who could get battle tactics with bonuses kind of
Mm-hmm.
felt like more of the focus, rather than like if you could complete your tactic at all. It didn't feel as much reliant on that. This season feels like if you can't get, battle tactics versus your opponent, it's much more important. The battle tactics feel more impactful this season, I think.
They do, because they're not as easy, and they're not as free, and you're
Yes.
going to be looking at the book Battletome battle tactics a lot more because of that, and that's fine. I think frankly they could go even further. I kind of wish all the battle tactics were a little more situational. Like we've got 3 from the previous season, so there's 4 from the previous season and 4 new ones. The 4 new ones all require Galatian champions or sworn bodyguards, which require a Galatian champion. So, yep. And then the other 4 are 3 of them are so easy you're going to score them every game. Every army is going to score them every game. That's how easy they are. Which means you really just need 2 more battle tactics, and you have the possibility of maybe having some janky plays that can deny your opponent a good battle tactic early on. I don't know. I think they can go further. Like if we had 1 free battle tactic and then 7 that are situational and more difficult and require changing your game plan around, I think I prefer that. Like having the 1 guaranteed is fine, so you don't get totally blown out of games. But I think a little more challenge in them would be good. But we're getting too far ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, a little bit. Okay.
So we've got new battle plans, and that's good. I think there's only one that I take issue with, and just because it's random, it's too random, and I don't like it. For competitive play, for like, hey, it's Tuesday night, let's go to the store and play a game. It actually seems awesome.
Fun. Yeah.
There's incentives for playing unmounted heroes with less than 10 wounds, and that are not unique. So the main stuff you get for that is there's new enhancements, there's new heroic actions that only they can use, and if you're going second, these new Galatian champions can use 2 heroic actions, which is for some armies better than others, because some armies have their own heroic actions, and some armies have good heroes that can fight in the hero phase. Some armies, like Lumineth, don't really benefit a lot from getting an extra unbind because they have tons of unbinds. Or healing D3, their heroes aren't going to be taking damage because they're being protected from missile weapons. So like very limited value from getting 2 of those. In order to take advantage of those, you have to build into the new battalions, which utilize this new concept called infantry, which might sound familiar to some people because that's what we've been calling Galatian veterans the entire previous season. We kept calling them infantry because saying Galatian veteran is too much effort. Now they formalized it. A veteran is any unit that is less than 5 wounds, so 4 or less or fewer. No mount, and I think that's it. Those are the only restrictions.
Yeah, it's the same classification as Galatian veterans from last season, with the caveat that battle line is no longer a thing.
Oh, and it can't be a leader, it can't be artillery, and it can't be a behemoth, right? Obviously. So. And then they also kept the Galatian veteran rules to fight in 2 ranks, the bonds of battle. So this allows you, if you're within half an inch of a model that's within half an inch of an enemy, that model can fight as well. So effectively, we just call this 2-rank fighting. I think it's the easiest way to explain that concept. And Bounty Hunters is gone. So all of a sudden, the game's going to change. Just on a heal, because of this simple thing that you can fight in 2 ranks, and there's no real counter to that, aside from just doing normal damage. And that's going to really change the game. Go ahead.
That fighting in 2 ranks is tied to a battalion, which a lot of the other bonuses are, and I think that's really, it's a lot bigger of a step towards breaking 1-drops than GW has taken before. But all 3 of the new battalions look a lot more impressive and something that you want to take rather than, 1 drop in one of the battalions.
Yeah, and that's something we've been talking about definitely on stream at least a few times, that the 2 things Age of Sigmar needs more than anything, like from just the core mechanics, is more incentive to not take a battle regiment, because battle regiment should be an interesting tactical choice. As long as we're going to keep this whole, like, the player who finishes deploying first chooses who goes first, as long as we're staying in that paradigm, then we need more reasons not to take a battle regiment. And stuff like the new battalions, the new Galatian Command, the new sharpshooters, and the new veterans. All of these look like they're going to do that really well. And I think, frankly, we can go even further. Like we can really go wild with battalions and have more differentiation in our units. We could have like a monster focused battalion, and then we could have like a monster hunter battalion with infantry units. We could have a cavalry battalion and then an anti-cavalry battalion. We can have all kinds of stuff in this game. And I hope that's what we're trending towards. It does make it more complex in terms of list building, and it might create a situation where you're like, oh, this unit's good, but only if you put it in this battalion, and then this other unit is better in this battalion, so this unit's just not good at all. But I think there's other ways to solve that problem, right? Just adding, like, Hurricane Raptors, for example, completely useless unit. Even, like, the only way they're going to get played is if they are cheaper than crossbow adjudicators. And even then, like, significantly cheaper. And that's just not good for the game. It's too many shots. So, like, they just got to, when they write War Scrolls, make sure there's some angle or some hook or some kind of ability in the allegiance or some synergy with a hero that, oh, this unit, with this combination is better than this other unit. And this unit is better in a different way. Like, as long as each unit has a niche, then that should be fine to work the battalions in that way. And all of that, all these new battalions really incentivize not just going battle regiment, which is great. Which means when you do take battle regiment, you have a specific plan, and that is a lot more satisfying to pull off than just, oh, both players have a battle regiment, so we're going to roll off to see who goes first.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how someone like Iron Jaws, who doesn't maybe care as much about all these rules, with their mounted units being their focus no matter what. It'll be interesting to see how they do. I mean, the war chances are going to be more important than ever in that army.
Right.
There's a lot of interesting things coming up, but yeah, why don't we take a look at the details?
Let's do it, because I think some of this stuff is it's pretty big. So we're not going to show the leaks here. In the case they are real, we don't want any trouble with Games Workshop. We're just going to discuss it. We've kind of paraphrased all the information here. If you want to find them, I've heard some Discord servers have some leaking pipes that might be able to help you out. But we're not going to show any of the leaked material on the stream. But to the best of our knowledge, we've transcribed them here. And I've kind of laid it out in a way that I hope makes this as easy to understand as possible. So first up, there's a new unit type called infantry. It doesn't give a keyword or anything. Like I said, it's just fewer than 5 wounds, not a leader, not artillery, not a behemoth, no mount. Don't get a keyword, but you go into these super powerful new battalions. These battalions let you fight in 2 ranks. They let you shoot heroes even when they would normally be unshootable. And they let you become a sworn bodyguard, which gives you 2 distinct advantages that we'll go into later. But trust me, sworn bodyguard is very, very good. It is... we'll talk about why it's good later. I'm so ready to get into that discussion. So we have another new unit type, the Galatian Champion, which is a hero that has fewer than 10 wounds, no mount, and is not unique. So Yndrasta, Bastion, Gardas, these heroes do not gain the Galatian Champion keyword. But things like it's quite sad. I get why they did it, because nobody wants Sigvald fighting first and then bringing a sworn bodyguard into combat, and then another unit, or Gotrek. God forbid Gotrek gets this, right?
Oh gosh.
Yeah, we don't need Gotrek scoring battle tactics and being unshootable. That would, no thanks.
Thank you.
Being a Galatian champion has a number of benefits. The main one is that if you are within 1 inch of a battle line unit, a friendly battle line unit, then you just can't be picked as the target of missile weapons in any phase. So Thunderbolt Volley doesn't work. Unleash Hell doesn't work, which is very interesting. If you somehow have a situation where you have a battle line unit within 1 inch of the hero after he finishes a charge, you just can't be picked as the target. You can take new artifacts and this new enhancement called Aspect of the Champion, which everybody gets 1. So you should probably bring at least 1 champion in your list to take advantage of that. And they're pretty strong effects.
Good. They're good.
They really remind me of the malign sorcery artifacts that have the power level of these things. They're very strong artifacts and aspects. And the new mechanic that we mentioned with heroic actions can only be used with a champion. So if you're going second in the round in your hero phase, not in both hero phases, in your hero phase, a Galatian champion can use 2 heroic actions. And the new heroic actions we'll talk about in a sec. But one of them is to fight in the hero phase, which is very useful, I think. Especially if we're talking about like Iron Jaws. They're just going to bum rush you with a battle regiment, try to pin you in your deployment. Well, if you can fight in the hero phase, that happens before movement. If you can kill everything that you're engaged in combat with, you can just move normally, and that completely negates the pinning playstyle. So I don't think a hero on their own fighting, but when we talk about the specific combos with Sworn Bodyguards, I think this is going to become a significant thing in games, especially for Stormcast at least.
Yep. I don't know if we mentioned it anywhere else. I don't know if I see it. But if you are going second, you do get a second hero action. Oh no, we did. We mentioned the first slide.
We were
Okay.
just talking about it.
Yeah, literally just now. No, but it can be really, really powerful in that situation. That's super strong.
Mm-hmm.
It's good. It's real good.
It definitely is, yeah. So Dan, you want to run us through the new battalions?
Yeah, the new battalions, man, I'm so excited to not see as much battle regiment and see and especially for something like the Annihilana list, for example, which didn't really care to take a 1-drop anyway. This is just, oh man, this is so good. So anyway, starting off, we got the Galatian command. So one champion. So champion is defined above with 1 infantry unit. So it does require 2 slots there. When that champion fights in the combat phase, that infantry unit fights as well. So basically, if you've seen the Chaos Lord rules, I believe the Chaos Lord has it in Slaves of Darkness. They have a retinue and they fight alongside them. You also get the same thing. So you get to go ahead and fight alongside each other. So you go ahead and you pick them in that phase, and they go ahead, as long as they're wholly within 6 inches, they can go ahead and fight together. So it does put a little bit of a limiter in there. And that is also tied to a battle tactic, going ahead and taking advantage of that. I believe the tactic... I don't have it pulled up.
I think it's a matter of honor.
Yep, a matter of honor. If you go ahead and you have... Yeah, you just destroy something with the champion or the Sworn Bodyguard unit. So if either activation goes ahead and destroys something, boom, you're going to get a tactic off of that. And this is the only way to get that tactic is if you have this battalion.
Yep. Well, you can pick a champion and then destroy another champion. That's unlikely. Foot heroes are not typically very good or reliable at combat. Maybe some armies might have some that are better, but ours are not very good. I think the most we get is like 10 damage out of a Lord Celestin, and that's not good.
Yeah, realistically, right?
Yeah. So I think I forgot to note it here, but the infantry unit, this is the Sworn Bodyguard. So this interaction is very, very powerful. We'll talk about the heroic action in a sec.
The Stormkeep.
Got a very excitable family member who decided to donate to us. Thanks, Liz. Appreciate it. Thanks, bud.
You gotta read it. You know you have to read what it says.
He says Daniel smells.
I
confirmed. Have showered today, I promise. Anyways, yeah, so Galatian Command, really interesting ability. It is only in the combat phase, so you're not going to get to do this cool ability if you do fight in the hero phase, which, you know, probably for obvious reasons is a little too strong, but it's still it's a powerful ability, and really really incentivizes you to take, you know, fast commanders who can actually go in and work with those units. I think a little spoiler, the Knight Azuros looking really good as a result of this.
Very good.
I'm very excited. But yes, Galatian Command, really good battalion, and important for tactics. So keep that one in mind for sure. It's something that I think I've seen some people gloss over in some of the like season games I've played. But yeah, for thank you again, Liz, for your donation. Yes, it's good. It all seems really good. I appreciate it. The Galatian Command is very good.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so Galatian Sharpshooters, this is the next one. So this one is 3 infantry. So it's going to have the 4 wounds or less, no mount, you know, not a leader, artillery, behemoth. And it does require all 3. So this one I think is really aiming towards busting 1-drops and really like taxing you. It is 3 infantry of any kind, so they do not have to be able to shoot. And that's important because this battalion, the whole idea of the season is that if your Galatian champion is within 1 inch of any battle line, they cannot be shot. This gets around that. So if you have, you know, 1 set of Raptors and 2 Vanquishers in this battalion, those Raptors can go ahead and shoot past and actually target that Galatian champion. So really important you can have this happen. They do not have to be shooters. But yeah, you ignore key to victory. That's what it's called.
Yep.
And yep, you don't require a missile weapon to be in there. That's going to be really strong. People are probably, really excited about the GC thing, Galatian Champions. I think that you should be a little bit cautious. Don't go too heavy into it. I think it gives some weight to Galatian Champions. I don't think you need to go whole hog and run like, 4, 5, 6 Galatian Champions. It may be a little bit of a trap if you're, over invested. So do keep that in mind. This battalion is going to be really important to see because this works in all phases. Like if it's Dock Snakes or long strikes, double tapping in the hero phase, it's still going to work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is it fills this battalion very well. 2 units of 3 long strikes,
and
an
units
Aether
of
Wing.
3 long strikes with Aether Wings. Yeah,
Yep.
This battalion, nice and just check that box. It's all done.
I was waiting for Dan to stop talking to say that.
Yep.
Yeah, long strikes
so,
looking real good this season.
Real good. Yep. That in my in practice game that I've had, it was super like that was like wait, long strikes are just taking little things out. I've seen other people who've had practice games as well, and they're like, wow, I really didn't expect that to be so impactful. Like that battalion, it feels like a big tax as far as taking up 3 whole drops and adding them onto your drop, as far as like a 1 drop goes. But it's going to be really important, so do not sleep on that.
Right. And the armies that can use it, it's going to be important, which I think it's going to be like Lumineth, Stormcast, maybe Daughters of Cain, maybe Seraphon, maybe Ideneth. Like most of the units that would benefit. They can. Oh yeah, Razor Dawns are actually decent units. Salamanders being able to shoot past a screen after teleporting in range. Because think about how tight the position of champions has to be to their units now. If you're within 1 inch to not get shot, it's very hard to be. Sorry? The handlers are part of the same unit. They're not a separate unit.
Yeah.
It doesn't fill the
not a mount at all? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Huh. Anyways.
Yep.
Yes.
And
going on, we got last battalion is Galatian Veterans. So this is the one we talked about earlier. Last season, this was something that was innate to all armies. If you had infantry units, they were infantry with 3 or less wounds in battle line. They could fight in 2 ranks. This is as long as you're within a ½ inch of a model that's within a ½ inch of an enemy model, you can fight in 2 ranks, as it were, similar to how 40k melee works. This is now a battalion, so you have to put those units into it, again aiming directly at 1 drop. You can't take a 1 drop and be a 1 drop, of course, and have this battalion. If you want to, if you're Nighthaunt, for example, this is going to be like you're taking this every time because you want your blade guys to be just as good as they were last season. This is key to that. They don't have to be a battle line, so this does enable evocators like we were talking about earlier, but it does preclude them from taking up Galatian Command or sharpshooters, which Galatian Command, you have to be within wholly within 6 inches of a champion. A lot of the units that would take advantage of this rule may not take advantage of that anyway. But it's still important to note that you can't have this effect like you had last season without paying this tax.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's a tactical choice when you're crafting your list. Do I want as few drops as possible, in which case, do I want to take advantage of all the cool stuff with Galatian Command and Sworn Bodyguards? Do I want to take advantage of the veterans? Do I want to take advantage of sharpshooters? Do I want all 3? And if you're taking all 3, do you still fill a warlord in order to get extra enhancements? Or do you, mix and match that with some battle regiment to have like a 3-drop or a 4-drop list? So this is going to really shake up the game in that aspect. And I think that's a good thing, because if you can craft a list that has a very competent alpha strike, not only will you have more fun playing it because the decisions you make are actually going to matter more in how the game turns out, there's actually counterplay to it now. There is more counterplay with this hero fighting thing and the Sworn Bodyguards, as we will hopefully explain, because I'm seeing some people in the chat who are doubting how useful hero fighting with Sworn Bodyguards is, and I think we can change your mind. I think we can make a good case for it.
Yeah, before we get off the subject of the battalions, though,
yep.
I will say that there's a discussion going on in the chat about overestimating the impact of Battle Regiment. This is something that's come up in our Discord servers. And I don't disagree with them. I think that until GW alters Battle Regiment as a battalion, I think we're still going to see it, and we're going to see it pretty consistent.
Oh, sure. But like some units just don't function without veterans. So if you're playing those units, you're going to
Oh
go
yeah,
at least 3-drop.
yes,
Some armies can
agreed.
take so much advantage of sharpshooters. You probably want to go 4-drop if you want to bring those units. And some armies can take such high advantage of the. I really do think Galatian Command is going to be a big deal. I think people are underestimating it. Just because of the way the game plays, being able to get extra action phases, even if it does give you fight last at the end of the turn, I don't think that's going to be that as relevant as people think. But yeah, all this stuff is going to break up Battle Regiment. I can't think of many armies that would still just want to go 1-drop. Maybe Ideneth. I think Ideneth might bring a block of like 20 thralls with their Soul Scryer or something, and stick them in command just to have that tool in order to break out of pinning situations. Or like 30,
I like that. Oh,
think about like
sorry.
30 Lumineth Wardens being able to fight in the hero phase.
Yeah,
That's disgusting. Man, that's brutal. And then think about them with the new. We haven't talked about this yet, but there's a new spell and a new command ability. Think about the new command ability on 30 Wardens with their 3-inch reach in a tight formation. If you charge them wrong, you just die. It's awful.
And that's awesome. But the issue, like with Lumineth in particular, is Lumineth can't afford to not have their buffs up
True.
at the beginning of the game, right?
So I think they'd probably go like 3-drop.
Yeah, or 3-drop, or stick with the 1-drop. We'll see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It could end up being that some factions still just really, really want the 1-drop. And that's better. I think it's, if you really want it, cool. But as long as it's not an game-wide system that everybody just takes the Battle Regiment, I think that's the sweet spot. You don't want to get rid of it necessarily, and you don't want to keep it around in every army. It's too common right now. Hopefully they can find some middle ground. Hopefully this is enough. We'll see. It really does feel like they're experimenting for 4th edition.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of weight on this. What I like is that they didn't make all of these the same. So basically, last season, you could go 2 to 3 units in EC, or 2 to 3 units in Bounty Hunters. This one, I really like that they made sharpshooters. It's 3 infantry. It has to be 3, right?
Yeah.
You can't go more than that. You can't go less than that. I do wish they made the Galatian veterans battalion 3 to 4. Just so that it felt like more of attacks, because I feel like that one's really easy to take, a 3-drop with the 1-drop the way it is. But it's fine. I like that there's different levels, because now you really have to think about how worth it is that 1-drop once I've put in sharpshooters, because sharpshooters going to be really important this season for Stormcast in particular. I know I've seen some people saying that they still want to go 1-drop with Stormcast. Especially with the way the tactics are, if someone is investing in Galatian champions and wants to get tactics that way, especially if they don't have access to better tactics, they're going to be really susceptible. They're going to be comfortable going, oh, I'm not going to be able to get shot. Especially if people are taking 1-drops and such, they're foregoing sharpshooters. You really want to have the option to mess with their game, right? You want to make sure that you can do what you want to do, and they can't do their game plan. So I think it's more important than you think that all of these, Galatian Command takes up 2 slots. Veterans probably going to take still 3 to 4 slots, because, if you have Blade Geist, you're not really going to have just 2 blocks that you want to be good. You might have 3. And then for sharpshooters, of course, that's going to put you at a 4-drop minimum. So there's different levels, and I think it's going to be really important. But some armies won't care. Like Lumineth, we were talking about, it's really important that they get, their protections up. That's fine. Iron Jaws, like I've mentioned before, they're probably not going to care either. They're probably going to go 1-drop as well.
There's
it's going to depend on the list, right? The mega boss on foot and a unit of brutes is going to be nuts fighting in the hero phase.
It is important to remember that the game is still the same game we've been playing, though, and brutes are just not as good as pigs.
True.
That's just kind of how it is. It's something that is important to remember. When these new season rules come out, a lot of people go really gung ho and full into the new season, and sometimes you forget that the game we're still playing is still the same game. So the units that are still good are still going to be good for that reason, and it's important to focus on the units that can take advantage of the rules, and we're still good, in a nutshell, in a vacuum.
Yeah. I think some people might be missing the hidden cost of veterans here, is that you can't be a veteran and a champion command at the same time. And that is a significant cost. Yeah. All right, so let's talk about why Galatian Command is good. And that is because two reasons. One is that in the combat phase, just fighting with a hero, that's not very good, right? Unless you have like a fight first ability, being able to strike at the same time as a support hero is questionable value. The reason I think Galatian Command is going to be so impactful is because of these two new heroic actions. So the first one here is called Strike at the Opening, and it gives a champion, I'm just going to call him champion, I'm not going to say Galatian every time. A champion unit within 3 inches of an enemy can fight. And there's all kinds of restrictions on this, right? You gain strike less until the end of the turn, you can't fight again in that phase, you can't do it if you already fought in that phase, so whatever. There's restrictions, but it's really just to avoid abuse. But the point is your heroes can fight in the hero phase, and there's very little opportunity cost to this, because mostly what people do with heroic actions is like in an emergency, they will try to dispel and end the spell. In a pinch, they will try to heroic leadership, right? Mostly what people do with heroic actions is 4-up generated command point, right? So the cost of a chance of getting a command point or guarantee that my hero can fight right now and maybe do some damage immediately, on its own, that's honestly not bad. For some factions, if you have a hero that can do somewhere around 10 to 12 damage in combat phase, considering you will have no buffs at this point, it's the start of your hero phase, all buffs are usually wiped. You won't have any bonuses to hit or wound, typically, unless you have some kind of aura effect. It's an okay amount of damage. It can add up. But what really makes a difference is this second heroic action. And remember, if you're going second in a turn in the round, in your hero phase, you can use a second heroic action with a champion. So this is lead by example. The Sworn Bodyguard unit also fights. So you use Strike at the Opening first, your champion piles in and fights, and then your bodyguard you use the heroic action again, and then your bodyguard piles in and fights. And this is a huge, huge deal when you're playing against stuff like Nurgle and Ironjaws, or just anything, really. Because think about situations where you get stuck in a combat and there's 2 to 4 wounds left of models, and your hero is stuck in there and stuck in with a unit. The hero can just punch his way out with a heroic action, and then you're free to move around. The Strike at the Opening is also usable in your opponent's turn. So it's just free damage, because you probably won't want to be fighting with that support hero later anyway. This is more impactful than people think, especially lead by example. And I think lead by example, maybe it's army specific, but I think it's a strong enough ability that you want to take advantage of it with the Galatian Command. I think 3-drop is going to be a standard for a lot of armies, just because you want a Galatian Command battalion. You want at least one champion to try to score a battle tactic. There's basically a freebie tactic in there, which we can talk about later if you have one champion. But this is very strong. This is a very strong effect.
Yeah, this really goes against the pin and win style that's been extremely popular last season. Like pin and win was the way to go, pretty much. Whether it was flies, even the way ogres play lately, even the way dragons play. This is a really big deterrent, more than ever. It's like, yeah, I can chance the double turn. Now you're not just chancing just the double turn. Even if they don't get the double turn, you can still get stung back pretty hard, trying to pin someone down.
Mm-hmm. And the Sworn Bodyguard thing also gets really gross if you have an ability that allows you to fight first. So there's not many. There are not many abilities that allow a hero to fight first. But let's say offensively, you're on the charge. Your hero fights first. They pull in a Sworn Bodyguard. They fight at the same time. Now it's your turn to pick a unit. You can pick a third unit. So you're effectively fighting with 2 units at the same time with a hero. So it's it's a little bit of a tricky positioning thing going on. But this is really useful for fighting across the table, which is usually not something that this game focuses on. This game is usually about centralized conflict all around supporting auras from heroes. But now it's like, well, I've got a hero and a unit. They're doing their own thing on this side of the table. And then I've got a completely different hammer unit on the other side of the table, and it's doing its own thing. Right. And if you have some fight first ability, you can enable all of those to go first. Defensively, it's even more disgusting. Defensive fight first is one of the strongest abilities in the game. It's up there with retreat and charge and how impactful it is on how you play the game. Because if you have to charge into, if you charge 10 protectors, for example, that's the example we're going to use a lot. If you charge 10 protectors, you might kill 3 to 4. And then when they attack you back, they might not be able to finish you off. But if you charge 10 protectors and they fight first, you're doing 0 damage to them because they're going to kill you before you have a chance to fight. So you just can't charge them. That is a combat that you cannot engage in until you figure out how to get around the fight first mechanic. This is what makes
So-
Fire Slayers so good. And in a, this hasn't been the meta previously.
Yeah.
But Fire Slayers are going to be terrifying. Like, you charge Fire Slayers, they just flip on a command and smack you with like 15 to 20 mortal wounds with the poleaxes. It's awful. It's really hard to play around it. And now you can't even snipe the battlesmiths, so they're going to be getting 4-up rallies against shooting the whole time.
Right.
It's tough, man. Like, the battalion combined with this heroic action really does a lot to fix the pin and win. And I'm not sure if that was intentional, but it seems like it may have been. And it's a very clever way of going about it, because it also, at the same time, breaks the battle regiment problem.
Mm-hmm.
Just as a point of clarification, the heroic command and the Galatian command and the bodyguards doesn't actually grant you any fight first effects.
No, it does not.
Part of the reason why we are discussing it so much, being Stormcast players, is because one of our build discussions that we're talking about is the use of the Quicksilver Draught, which is one of our artifacts that grants that once per game.
Mm-hmm. And that artifact is big stonks.
Going to be good.
Very, very good. Yeah. I think it's going to
first
supplant the Arcane Tome as our default artifact.
Yeah.
It's that good.
Agreed.
Possibly.
Think of it like a holy command. Like, once per game, you can strike first with a sworn bodyguard. Unbelievably good.
Yeah, I think that ironically, this season is enabling the Horde meta that we all thought was supposed to happen last season.
Yep.
Yeah, this is the real, like, Skaven. Gonna be really enjoying this. Soulblight. I think Soulblight are gonna be some of the scariest.
Soulblight's gonna be great.
As far as maybe not like the scariest army, but like the most surprising, because I think everyone's forgotten that Soulblight existed because Nighthaunt's been around so much.
Well,
remember in the Horde meta, or sorry, the monster meta, like 2 seasons ago, I guess now it would be like the 3.0 season. And slowly we saw people drift into like discussions of, hey, how do we deal with 180 wounds of zombies?
Right.
Because I'm dealing like 22 damage in the combat phase with my monster. How do I do the other 38 wounds to this block of 60 zombies? And you just couldn't. You just couldn't.
Well, and being a sort of amateur Soulblight player on occasion and playing against a lot of Soulblight, Bounty Hunters is really what crushed Soulblight Gravelords.
Totally.
Their units would just die. But they already have an effect that lets them double activate with a hero as a battle trait.
Oh, the Iron Just Smash and Bash thing?
Soulblight.
You mean Soulblight.
Soulblight.
Yeah.
Soulblight
Soulblight has this.
Yeah, they do have that.
So I think it's going to be, no, it's just about it's a battle trait.
Oh, they have a trait.
Yeah,
I thought you were talking about the double fight.
Them and OBR both have a trait where when a hero fights, they can pick a unit to
Oh.
also fight.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. That's what when you said double fight, my mind went to Dance McCup.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to answer Null Factor in the chat, he said, how many hordes can you fit within 6 inches if the hero needs to fight first? It's not necessarily, and if the hero's fighting first, you can still pile and that kind of thing. But it's not necessarily that it's going to be a horde focused, like using this particular mechanic, but it's in general, as well as some of them are going to be able to take advantage of this. Like, not all of your horde armies are massive, like, single units. Sometimes the horde armies can still be MSU or close to MSU, single reinforced, if not double reinforced.
Well, you can also just stick the hero in the center of the big block of zombies, because it doesn't say that the hero has to do any damage. If he's within 3 inches, you can pick him to fight.
That's right.
He doesn't pile in because he can't move. He doesn't hit because he's not in range, but he fought.
Yeah, fight just means you make a pile in move, and then you attack with all the weapons that you have in range.
Yeah, you attempt to attack.
Right. You have
if you can.
Yeah, you have to attack if you can. If you don't attack, you've still fought. As long as you have been eligible to fight, you're picked to fight, that counts as fighting. So, if you charge within, for example, 3 inches of a Stormcast hero holding the Quicksilver Draught, he activates that, he fights first. Even if he can't reach anything, he still counts as fighting, and then he can pull his Sworn Bodyguard into combat, and they can fight first as well, effectively. So this is giving Stormcast kind of like a holy command to do what Fire Slayers do, except it can't be stopped with Roar and Geminids and things like that. It's very potent. This is a very, very
Yeah.
strong effect that we're gaining.
And that's not necessarily your main tactic. Like sometimes you are going to want the hero to fight. I'm just saying that there's flexibility
Right.
that you might not see. It's all about options. This game is all about options, and these battalions are giving us options.
Yeah,
It's,
like sharpshooters, we're going to take it probably a lot of times. Does it help against Iron Jaws?
Oh, yeah.
Not really. Does it help against Gargants? No, absolutely not. But in the matchups it helps you in, it helps you a lot. It's like, even though bounty hunters, even though the meta pushed hordes out of the meta, we still took bounty hunters because sometimes you played against Night Haunt, and it was really, really good against them.
Or
So-
Fire Slayers,
and-
or
yeah. And even if you're a one drop, it's still a 50-50. Like it's not like, oh, you go one drop, you automatically get first every time, or get to choose rather. It just goes second. So it's not necessarily, one drop is looking less or pure one drop is looking less and less like a default.
I think it's looking less like a default, but it's actually looking stronger tactically, because if more people
Yes.
are if you're looking at the value proposition of, do I go one drop or do I get this sworn bodyguard thing so that I can have more options with heroic actions and combat phase? Do I get sharpshooters? Do I enable some units to just be useful with veterans? I think a lot of armies are just going to have to take veterans to make their units useful to begin with. So you look at all
It
that
makes
and you're
your
like,
decision-
yeah, like Battle Regiment looks
Yeah.
a real choice. Therefore, less people are going to take it, which ironically makes Battle Regiment more useful because less people are taking it.
Mhm.
So,
yeah, it's more impactful when you take it.
yeah.
Yep.
You're not going to fit 60 zombies wholly within 6 inches of a necromancer. But those 60 zombies are not going to be your sworn bodyguard unit. Something like 20 or 15 or 20 Graveguard, that's going to be your sworn bodyguard. I forget if they come in 5s or 10s. I can't remember.
They're 10s.
They're okay, so 20 Graveguard, that's a sworn bodyguard unit because they hit really hard when you buff them up fully. So stuff like 15 Hearthguard, that's a sworn bodyguard unit because if the hero fights in the hero phase, then they can fight as well. There's also a prayer I think Fire Slayers can do to fight with a hero, and I wonder if there's some play. There's some play there. I don't think so. I think the heroic action is the only way to activate the sworn bodyguard.
Yeah, it says that it requires that they take the specific Galatian champion heroic action from the book, and then once that's done, if you have 2, you can activate 7.
Yeah. So if you and it says you can't fight again after that, so you can't use the heroic action and then fight again with the hero later. So they've accounted for a lot of interactions with this, thankfully.
Yep. It's surprisingly well thought out.
and frankly, if they left it there, I think that would have been enough to, like, the battle tactics, the battalions, the heroic actions. If they left it there, I think that would have been enough. Maybe it would have been enough to just push it on its own to shift the meta. But then they added these new enhancements as well, and these are good. The artifacts
really
are strong. The unique enhancements are strong. Let's go over them, because I think this is going to also tip people more into being like, oh, you know what? Champions are good. You know what? I'm going to bring 1 or 2 and lean on them a little bit more. So first up, the aspects. You just get one of these in your army. If you don't have a champion, you can't take any advantage of it. If you have a champion, you just get one for free. If you have multiple champions, you can take extra enhancements from like a warlord battalion in order to get more of these. I don't know if that's worthwhile, but maybe. So let's go over them. So the first one here is once per battle, this champion can just tunnel away and teleport more than 9 inches from all enemies. So it's like a Knight Zephyros all of a sudden, this hero once per game. When you consider that some battle tactics require heroes to be on objectives, these small heroes specifically, that's actually a very useful thing. Even in a Stormcast army where we have translocate, it's useful to, let's say you have a Lord Relictor, he translocates a unit of protectors or crossbows or something, and then you're like, well, next turn they're stuck there until I translocate over there, and then on the third turn I can translocate the crossbows again. But this allows you to just skip that process and say, well, my Lord Relictor just follows the unit that he translocated. Easy. Nice tactical utility. The next one here is, it's like the Seraphon artifact. When you die, you just 3+, you revive and heal D3 wounds, and any extra damage is ignored. So, yep, that's nice. Actually, if people start taking sharpshooters, right? If we fight a lot of Lumineth that are taking sharpshooters or Stormcast, this one's actually really good because it helps keep your like Azuros with Quicksilver Draught alive.
Yep. I was gonna point out, now you mentioned sharpshooters and shooting GCs. Cheese Bob in the chat said that he tried a new game, and even when shooting GC, you still need to shoot big bad in screens.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that yes, and some people would say, why would I take sharpshooters if I still have to shoot this other stuff? You want flexibility. right? If you see, you can see when an opponent is moving across the board and what tactic they're going to go for. You see like, hey, they're trying to do, the tactic where you grab 2 objectives in opponent territory with 2 GCs. You can stop that from happening. So it's more about the flexibility of being able to do that in the situations that you need it, and that's where it's gonna matter more so than if you were 1-drop, for example, at the time.
There could totally be a meta that evolves out of this where sharpshooters just isn't getting enough value because we just don't care that much about shooting heroes. Like when people ask how to beat Stormcast, I tell them ignore the heroes. Do not put damage into our heroes. The units that matter are not. They don't have the hero keyword, right? So yeah, that it could be the case where that's the case. We just don't want a sharpshooter. Sometimes though, like you want to kill that war chainer before you get charged. Yes. That's a big deal.
Yep.
Yeah. The next aspect of the champion here, and Cheesebob was talking about this in the chat as well. This hero counts as 10 models on an objective as long as there's no other enemy champions on it. That's really good.
I think this will probably be the stock standard for a lot of armies.
That's going to be my go-to.
Yeah, it definitely feels like the default, especially in our army, because we don't have a lot of models, and based on the battle plans, we're looking at really tight confrontations. There's some battle plans where off the start, 60 zombies can walk onto your objective, not charge you, and there's nothing you can do, and they just contested it, and you have to kill your way through them. Yeah, this really helps with that. You just count as 10 extra models. Kind of makes Stormkeep a little bit worse, right? if we have this tool to count as 10 models, you don't really need a squad of liberators to count as 15. Every season they just find a way to nerf Stormkeep. This is really good. I think it benefits some armies more than others. If you have teleporting heroes, if you have really fast heroes, like I really like the Azuros and Venator with this, because they can just run 6 and then you have an 18-inch flying move, and then you're on objective. Zephyros is really good for taking empty objectives, but people are usually really smart and careful about this, and they stop you from being able to teleport onto them. Not always possible to do that, but whenever they can, they will do that. And that's where stuff like Thunderbolt Volley comes in, to just wipe a hero off with sharpshooters on an objective, and then you just, or whatever's sitting on it, and then you just teleport onto it. So hero phase damage is important. It's very useful in this game.
I think that the Zephyros teleporting with 10 would have been really good. I was very disappointed to see that we don't have any battle plans in the book that have 6 or more objectives this season.
Yeah, very few objectives.
The most is 5.
I personally prefer that.
Yeah. See, I'm the exact opposite. I've always really enjoyed the battle plans with a lot of objectives playing Stormcast because of things like the translocation, teleport, stuff like that. It forces your opponent to either give up those free points or leave stuff in the backfield to camp those objectives.
The lack of objectives means we're going to have more centralized combats, which definitely further pushes us into something like Guard as Protectors, where we just have a super durable block that can just hold out for a long time. When you have 6 objectives or 8, or I think 8's the most we've seen. Right?
8's the most, yeah.
When you have stuff like that, having a big block on a single objective is really not as valuable as it seems, because you just play the other 7 objectives.
I would have preferred if the book, for every battle plan that we have with 2 or 3 objectives, that we got a battle plan with 6 objectives. I thought that would have been a good balance.
It's pretty well balanced. I think it trends towards being an average of like 3.
6 is my upper limit.
Yeah.
I think I'm biased against 6 because every time they've added 6, it's been like a scorched earth type thing where you burn objectives for bonus points. And I just don't like that objective because it always really favors double turns. I actually like the anti-double turn mechanics that they keep adding to the game. More of that stuff, please. But stuff like, there's that one battle plan where starting with the 3rd round, I think it might be 2nd round, the player going 2nd just burns an objective. I really like stuff like that. I hope they keep doing that.
Yeah. I do think that the double turn is an important feature of AOS. And, there can be a whole discussion on this, but I do think that it's important to have that kind of, looming possible threat that makes you play more tactically and rewards you for playing more tactically. But it's important to have good balancers on both sides, and I think this season does that really well.
On that topic of the double turn, like these heroic actions incentivize, like give you a defensive tool against double turns. Specifically pinning strategies, right? We could also have heroic actions that work off like reducing the effectiveness of magic double turns. Because if you're in range of spells, like you're 18 inches and you get doubled, that's brutal. Like some armies can just really do a ton of damage. And what if we had like heroic action once per game? This hero can guaranteed unbind or something. Like, probably wouldn't break the game, right? Like I think heroic actions are a good place to explore really powerful anti-double turn mechanics, and I hope they continue doing experiments like this.
Especially if those effects are once per game.
Sure.
Like like Finest Hour, where a hero can do this once per game.
It really should be once per game, because really the double turns that matter are like the 1/2 double or the 2/3 double, and then double turns after that are way less impactful because it's just less stuff on the table in general. So having these once per game effects, I think, is fine. If it was every turn, you might actually start gaming it to get late game double turns and play a little. But anyway, so the last aspect of the champion is you basically become an Ironjaw's war boss. You can issue rally, all out attack, all out defense, or redeploy once per game 3 times in that phase. So I can't tell you how many times I wish I could redeploy 3 units at once. That is actually really useful. Being able to all out attack 3 units at once is really useful for our shooting style. If we have 2 blocks of raptors and then a block of crossbows, being able to all out attack all of them at the same time is really nice. Being able to rally 3 different units is going to be really big for some armies like Fire Slayers, Daughters of Cain, who have bonuses to rally. That's going to be really good. Soul Blight rallying a bunch of different units. That's a very strong one. I think this one and the 10 objectives or 10 models on an objective, these 2 are the picks for most armies. And then if we ever deviate too much into sharpshooters, then people will start teching in the 3+ revive. For sure.
This is one of those situations where I really think sharpshooters is going to shine, because even if you want to normally shoot the big threat pieces, being able to assassinate that Galatian champion who can issue all out attack 3 times or counts as 10 models before they get to do that is
super satisfying.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they stack all these cool new artifacts and everything and on the hero, and you're just like Thunderbolt volley. See ya. Yep. Looking at the new artifacts, they are very good. The first one is the Tusk Helm. When you finish a charge move, roll a dice equal to the charge roll, and each 4+ is a mortal wound. If you guys have been using chariots, or if you're playing against ogres, this is a significant source of damage that you previously just didn't have on that hero. And if you're going to be charging in heroes to activate Sworn Bodyguards, this is just free damage, right? Like, you give up another artifact, but like, that's nice. And this happens every turn. This is not once per game. This is every time you charge. And I think I'd have to double check the wording on it, make sure you can't like get extra damage in the hero phase charges and out of phase charges and things like that. But yeah, that's nice.
It just makes a charge move. Yep.
Okay, so I'm sure there's some interaction that's going to make this really gross.
I am going to be sticking this on an Azuros immediately.
Like, not the Quicksilver?
Him being able... I don't know. I'm really enjoying this. I'm not sure how much I'm going to be using Sworn Battalion, but we'll chat into that. But I'm really liking this as a, making some of our champions more lethal, just sitting on their own, just because our champions unfortunately don't get to hit as hard as other heroes do.
We hit harder than most champions. We do. But the problem is that we're just fragile. Stormcast are weirdly like, we're not fragile. What's the word? Brittle. We're brittle. When we get hit, it hurts. And losing a hero because you stuck him in a bad combat, generally not a good idea. But I mean, if you kill stuff with the Tusk Helm, it's totally worth it. Like, imagine charging in an Azuros, 2 chariots, and then your actual hammer unit, and then you just deal 3 instances of charged mortal wounds, and then you fight with the unit that charged in that you want to fight with. Pretty good.
Yeah, this is really cool ability.
Yeah, it's super good. It's really good.
It is also unmodified charge rules, so can't be cheesing it that way, thankfully. Next one is the Night Flyer Cloak, which allows you to deploy a hero in reserve and then set it up more than 9 inches from an enemy and within 1 inch of a friendly battle line unit, which would automatically make them immune to shooting because they're a champion and they're within 1 inch of a battle line unit. This is going to be big. A lot of armies wish they could deploy a hero in reserve and just scions it into play. The fact that you have to set it up within 1 inch of a friendly battle line kind of prevents some cheese mechanics of like, but like think about comboing this with something like Tree Revenants. Any Order army that can ally in Tree Revenants, the Tree Revenants can just teleport, and then you just drop the hero wherever they are. That's really good. As long as you can find some use for the hero. But like that combination is just very strong. It's not going to be taken a lot at first, but I think it's going to take some time for people to figure out just how good that could be. And it's going to be pretty good. Not for Stormcast. We have Signs of the Storm. We can ignore it.
Just do this.
Yeah, we just do this normally. Maybe in like a Stormkeep list, you could maybe take advantage of it somehow. Probably not. And the last one, the often returning Griffeather Charm, back for its third attempt at not being totally broken. It's a 5-up board. It's Amulet of Destiny, but only for champions, which I remember when we were talking about the nerfs to Amulet of Destiny, we were like, this is totally fine on anything with less than 10 wounds, completely broken on Maw Crushes. And hey, they seem to be willing to play that argument out at least. So we'll see. I'd say the Tusk Helm out of these three is the best one. But you can make a really tanky GC with the Revive and the 5-up board. That looks pretty good.
You went back on the slides a little bit there, Paul.
Did I? No, I'm still here on the.
Oh, I hit something. Never mind. That was just I just keep an eye on the screen, make sure it's all going good.
Okay.
I hit something.
All right. Last few things that are coming in this season in terms of rules. We have a new spell, which seems better than the previous spell, especially after they eroded it. This one, it casts on a 6 and has a range of 12. You have to pick an objective that you can see, and then for each unit on that objective, on a 4+, it takes D6 mortal wounds. That's potentially a lot of damage, especially because the way people are going to be playing the season is having, units and then heroes standing on an objective at the same time. This punishes people who overcommit to objectives. It is a way to get around sharpshooters for some armies. But look at all the downsides here. A range of 12 inches, and you have to be able to see the objective. So if one model is standing on the center of the objective, like the 6-inch range where you normally control, if one model's standing on it, you can no longer see the objective. That's the correct interpretation of the rules, we're pretty sure. So you can just completely shut this down.
It is what it is. And 12 inches is super short anyway. Like 12 inches, gosh, this is so, like, they said this was going to stop people from camping objectives out. And I mean, if you're going to be able to go get within 12 inches, why aren't you charging them? And people don't typically land directly on objectives anyway,
Oh yeah, it makes like the magic art, like Seraphon are gonna love this. Seraphon are gonna adore this. Another 4+ D6. It can swing so high, or it does nothing. It's fine. Yeah, we'll see how this one plays out. I suspect the randomness of it will probably make it you forget this exists most of the time. And the short range of it means you just won't even have an opportunity to use it. But this is hero face damage that can push you out of a pin situation. It can spike high, so don't forget about this one. It can swing a game maybe. It's a Hail Mary, but it's there.
Yeah, it could matter. I like Chase calling out the Lord of Kingdom and Griff Charger, like teleporting in, like just slamming this spell off and then just dipping out.
Yeah.
That would be pretty funny.
And go ahead.
I would say Cheese Bob asked, what do you think is the best hero for Leadership of Alpha, the give multiple commands in a phase? I'm assuming for Stormcast.
Imperaton's tempting because he issues the first one for free and then you just get all of them for free. That's really nice. Azeros is also really good. Lord Relictor is honestly not a bad choice because if he's sitting back with all the shooting, he tends to be a more defensive hero.
For Imperaton, all of them would be free. Because the first one is the only one you pay for.
You could also take one of the. I know no one's going to do it, but you could take one of the core battalions to let you issue all-out attack for free, and then you can issue it to everybody for free.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
you could.
Yeah.
Forgot about that interaction. I have to take a look at those core battalions again.
I've looked at it. This is better, but it's not enough.
This would be a nice effect if it was the bonus from that battalion. If you had a battalion that was like a hero and like 2 to 3 units, and the bonus was when you issue a command to one of those units, you can issue it to the others. That would be really cool.
Yes, it would.
Mm-hmm. All right.
They were talking spell portal is going to be pretty interesting. Yeah, with the new. Yeah, I
Yeah.
can see that helping a lot.
Yeah.
If you're already going to throw spells anyway, right? Other damaging spells.
But the problem with that is that the armies that take spell portal for a particular spell. They're not going to cast Grinding Teeth.
It's a bonus for them. They'll sometimes use it. It's that type of situation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to push any army to take a spell portal that wouldn't normally.
Yeah. No. I agree.
For sure. Yeah. If you weren't taking it before.
This also makes Nagash better. Let's talk about that as well. It makes Nagash better. Yay! More Nagash in the meta. Okay,
right.
There's a new realm command. Unlike the previous season, this one actually does something, and you can use it outside of very specific scenarios of like 2 squads of Annihilators fighting each other. This one is activated at the start of the combat phase, only if you're within 3 inches of an enemy. You can't make pile-in moves, but you get +1 attack with all your melee weapons. And there's some caveats here. It can't be a hero, it can't be a monster, you can't charge. So it's purely defensive or sustained combat. And it does work on like stuff like Fulminators and Stormdrakes, but the mounts don't get the bonus. It's just the riders, right. It says. So infantry, if you have like 2 attack infantry, like Hearthguard Berserkers, perhaps, suddenly getting a 3rd attack and then stacking that with Lord of the Lodge. Now you're at 4 attacks apiece with poleaxes. That's a stupid amount of damage.
Yep.
But
this is free Unleash Thy Hatred.
It is, but it's also super hard to use because you can't make pile-in moves. So if you have 1-inch weapons and your opponent charges you with like a model on your flank, you're getting no value out of this. You're better off using like all-out defense or something.
And we missed it in the slide. You also cannot have charge.
No, I mentioned that.
Yeah.
And it's on the slide.
Yeah.
Really? Oh,
can't be a hero, monster, or a unit that charged.
Or a unit that charged. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah. But this, if you have defensive fight first, and your opponent charges into you, this gives you even more power. Like, I think this might actually make squads of 5 Retributors a really good sworn bodyguard, because if somebody charges into that, you pop Quicksilver Draw it, and you just blast them with 21 attacks that do a lot of damage on average. And then the Azuros also gives you +1 hit. So, good combo. 5 Retributors and an Azuros.
You don't need an all-out attack. You have it, and then oh gosh, it's so good. Protectors will do this really well with their 3-inch reach as well. Defensively, they're gonna. And so
the big downside, obviously, is if people charge you with stuff that doesn't have a big profile, that you can't get a lot of surface area on with your defensive position. Like if a Chariot charges just on a flank, you can't really get a lot of value out of this. If a Maw Crusher charges you and taps 2 models that would be in range to attack, it's not going to get a lot of value. But we do think, from our internal discussions at least, it seems like we're thinking this game's going to move into more big blocks of infantry type game. And when you have 2 big blocks of infantry slamming into each other, getting +1 attack really, really helps to win those engagements. So definitely keep an eye on this one. Frankly, it makes me want to play Stormdrakes even more because you can just roar and stop it. It's really good. Yeah, good command. Definitely remember this one exists, because when you charge 30 Lumineth Wardens and they immediately counterattack with 3 attacks a model, it's going to hurt.
Yep. It's going to be good.
If they got empowered at all.
Oh yeah, that's a huge damage steroid. So other changes. So we mentioned there's 6 new battle plans, 6 being carried over. There's 4 new battle tactics, 4 being carried over. The 4 new tactics all require Galatian Champion. The 4 being brought back, 3 of them are easy. 1 of them requires killing something with your general. So for some armies that's easy, for some it's really hard. Like for us, we're not getting that one. It's just not going to happen. Yeah. If we could cast stuff to death, that could maybe happen. But no, you're not killing stuff with a Lord Relictor or I don't even know what else we use as a general.
And it's got to be their attacks. So charge mortal wounds from the Tusk Helm and stuff like that.
Yep. Doesn't work. Yep. It's really sad. There are the other 4 tactics require 2 of them require having at least 2 Galatian champions. The other 2 require 1 Galatian champion. One of them is pretty easy, I gotta say. The cunning maneuver, that one's pretty easy to pull off, because you don't have there's a lot. The other ones have a lot more restrictions, and some of them are frankly just impossible to score. So definitely keep an eye on the battle tactics this season.
It's going to be more important than ever to dig into your book tactics. Even the Stormcast ones.
Yep. Oh boy. There's 3 new grand strategies and 3 new ones. The 3 new ones have to do with Galatian champions. The 3 previous ones are the one of them is like the worst one they printed, which is like tame the land. You have to control all objectives. Like, who's gonna do that? That's so But I was probably complaining last season that I wish the grand strategies were harder. So this is the result of that.
They left defend what's theirs and take what's there. Defend what's ours and take what's theirs, though.
I like those ones. They're easy to understand because like you can physically see the models on the board, right? It's not like, and it's based off movement more than it is based on combat. So I like that one. We're also expecting there to be a full battle scroll release at some time. I think today they announced that the General's Handbook is going up for pre-order, which means it comes out next week. So maybe we'll be seeing you guys a week from today with another live stream talking about the battle scroll. But we don't know what's in there. There could be other things included. Like there has been a purported leak of the battle scroll, but who knows? They could change things. And yeah, it could be the case that everything we're excited about with like the Quicksilver Draw at Nazaros, all of that gets rotted away. I hope it doesn't, because it seems really cool to be able to use a hero. That was one of my favorites from 2nd edition and 1st. We've also received new point values for every army. A lot of it has been like rounding up and down. It seems like they don't like the X5 format anymore. They don't like things being 155 points. They'd rather make them 150 or 160, just rounding it off. And frankly, I agree. Every time I picked the Knight Judicator, I was like, why is this 205? Just make it 200. Get rid of the 5. This is this awkward number when you want to bring 3 of them, 4 of them. And surprisingly, Stormcast, better for internal balance, but a lot of our common stuff got nerfed, which is unwarranted, I would say. I don't think Stormcast win rate
Some of it
is so high that it's like, yeah, we gotta take Stormcast down a notch. Like the Castellan went up, Chariots went up, Gardas went up by a lot. Little nerfs here and there, and that sucks. Especially if you just have no interest in playing the stuff that got buffed, because we got a lot of buffs. We got way more buffs than we did nerfs. If you like Paladors, if you like Sequitors, if you like playing Vindictors, like Bounty Hunters being gone is just a huge buff across the board to a lot of our units. So overall, it's looking pretty good for Stormcast. I can't wait to see where everything lands with all these points. But I'm sorry, Dan, your Dueling Dragons list is dead.
Yeah, it's looking real rough.
I had a list
Life
with
support.
I had a list with Gardas, 4 Chariots. That went up like 55 points, and I just can't play that list anymore. It's like Aetherwings got nerfed. Why are they nerfing Aetherwings of all units?
Yeah.
Yeah, the nerfs are, like Adam's saying, the nerfs are very minor, everything considered, but it is very annoying for list builds, which, give and take, new lists to build, right?
Yeah.
Especially with
Sorry,
endless
Jake.
spells going up, the list composition is going to be harder. You're going to have to squeeze points more, because you're not going to give up Aetherwings. Like, you're not just going to swap them out for another unit. If you're running long strikes, you want Aetherwings. If you have 70 points left over, you're going to run Aetherwings. So I think we're going to use a lot less endless spells, because we've got to squeeze points as much as we can. We don't have like the 40 points left over for a Horrorghast anymore. And now it's 70 points, which is crazy. Yep. Maybe we'll still use it because it's a Horde meta, but probably going to cut all the endless spells out of my lists. And yeah,
Yakers.
Spagwag saying Libs got done dirty. Yeah, Liberator's getting nerfed. I never thought I would see the day that Liberators got nerfed. They were too strong. Liberators.
Vanquisher. New master battle line.
I've been playing Age of Sigmar for 6 years, and I never thought Liberators were too strong. Or even good. They were just cheap.
And I think this is indicative of the methodology that they're using. Liberators didn't take a point increase because they needed to be nerfed. They took a point increase because they were, quote, seeing too much play. They're our basic battle line. Of course, they're in every list.
They basically have core.
Yeah.
They were going to be there. I don't know.
Well, we just swapped to whatever's
Vanquisher.
cheaper now. It's now Vanquishers.
Yeah.
Cool.
Which is cheaper than before, which is very nice.
Yeah. I like 110 points sounds good for our basic battle line. It was like 3 squads Liberators being 345 was a really weird number. Like 345, and then you have to find another 5 to add into your list, and I'd rather just not. I'm fine with them doing this. I hope they correct it and make Liberators the cheapest battle line again. I miss them already.
Just make Liberators 110 or 115, Vanquishers 110 or 115, Sequitors 120, Vindictors 120. Call it a day.
Yeah, we got to do that short video Morgana was talking about, just like explaining what Redeemers should be priced at and why we think they should be priced that way. Make it like a 5-minute video, not too long, but we'll have to definitely work on that. And we'll have to also finish the Slaves to Darkness review now that they've announced the Battle Tome.
Now that we have an idea, of what the next season looks like too, because it's really awkward to do a review of a Battle Tome and then have the rules just change on us.
Yeah, it's not good for anyone if we put out a Battle Tome review and then like 3 weeks later it's irrelevant. Yeah, like nobody cares about Bounty Hunters anymore. You go back and watch our Stormcast review, like Bounty Hunters doesn't matter anymore. But I guess that's just the nature of making videos for this game when it's going to change this much. Okay, so let's just open the floor to discussion. If you guys have any questions in the chat, feel free to drop them in there and we'll talk with you guys. Just what do you think the impact of these rules is going to be on the game? How impactful do we think champions are going to be? How much do we think these battalions are going to get taken advantage of? Which armies can take advantage of them? Totally free-for-all questions here, so feel free to jump in the chat and let us know. And I'll start the discussion off by really just posing the question, how many armies can actually take advantage of champions? You know, the key to victory is good. Obviously, against Stormcast, we'll just take sharpshooters and then we'll just keep doing everything we were doing. But like Iron Blasters can't shoot you anymore. That's huge. Anything that has a shooting attack that can't be a sharpshooter, like Fulminators can't breathe lightning on you, Stormdrakes can't breathe lightning on you, Night Judicators can't shoot you anymore. Those are specific units now that you have to deal with, and only if they're sharpshooters. So let's say Stormcast play against Lumineth, and we see, oh well, what's your sharpshooters? It's the Sentinels. Good news, we were going to kill them anyway. Like that's the number one target in the Lumineth army is the shooting. So we're just going to shoot them first. So which armies do you think really will take the most advantage of this? I'm thinking like Skaven are really going to love this. Really. Fire Slayers,
Soulblight, Daughters. Daughters is.
I don't know how they're going to find room for any champions with Marathi and so many bows.
Oh, I just think they don't run Marathi. I think this actually helps push the list towards non-Marathi lists.
Yeah, the Gladiatrix and Hag Queens and stuff like that. I think that's going to be what we
Those lists were never bad. They just didn't play the game stronger than Marathi does. But now with Marathi not being, with Marathi not counting for some of these tactics, that other list style, it's a good list. Just now you're rewarded for taking it.
Yeah.
Every time I've predicted that Marathi lists are not going to be the way to play Daughters of Cain, I've been wrong. I will continue to hope that Marathi lists go away because I hate playing against Marathi. It was like, remember for like a period of like a year, all you played against was Nagash and Archaon, and you just hated playing against them? It's like that, but it's been since 2017. Since 2017, Marathi's been that thing for me. So I don't want to play against her anymore. It's boring. Daughters of Cain are probably a really boring army to play. I feel bad for people who have to deal with this, because if you want to optimize, you just take Marathi. I hope they change it. I hope this is enough to change it, because frankly, I don't want to see her nerfed or anything. I just want to see her not be in every single list. But she probably will be. Let's be real. I don't. Yeah. They'll use sharpshooters, but probably not too many champions.
Yeah. Just to address Uncle Mo, I starts with a no. Why not make a video that rates units on their own merit instead of the available battalions? We want to cover as much as we can, so we do want to make sure we do cover it that way. When we talk in the videos, we do talk about in this season and then past the season. It's just that when a good 30 to 40% of our video is going to be talking about the season we're in, that feels not as great,
Yeah, so it's tough.
We just felt like saving it.
You want to talk about it season agnostic. And we do try to consider here's just the book, and we're just going to assume no extra battalions, just the core rules. And how does it shape up? But then we also, you start applying seasonal stuff and you get excited. You can't help but talk about it. And that's kind of what people want to see as well. It's the book just came out. I'm really excited about playing it. I don't they want to hear about how to play it more or less in the next 3 months. Right. So it's hard. You got to hit the right balance, I think, where you try to make it as evergreen as possible, but also incorporate the current
Relevant.
mechanics. Yeah. So
Yep.
it's tough. It's tough to
And
find
the
that.
mechanics can often really, really alter what units are good. We've been very vocal since pretty much the book came out that foot evocators weren't worth playing, competitively at least. Their efficiency was just way too low, not being able to fight in 2 ranks. Now they can fight in 2 ranks, and I've played them in a brick of 10, and they are just as amazing as I remember.
Yeah. I think you just got to count for both, right? It's like, yeah, evocators are probably going to be bad after this season if the 2 rank fighting goes away, but they're good now. Let's enjoy it. Let's talk about it. Let's be excited about it. So,
Looking at this fellow Dan asking about dragons. I don't know that 8 dragon list is still going to be as viable as it was. That one took actually quite a big hit, pretty individually. But I think that dragons are still going to be very good. Like, I think dragons are still going to be S tier this season simply because they do not care what season it is. They still do their job. They are monsters. They ignore a lot of magic, which has become really prevalent. If you've played against Tzeentch with a lot of dragons, it's really satisfying. I've had Lumineth games where I've had 1 spell land on me in 5 turns of gameplay. You know, it's really tough to just take dragons out of their spot in the meta. The actual dragon lists themselves are going to change a lot, but dragons are still good. Oh hey, Bergonk,
Hey,
welcome.
Hi guys. I was dealing with something.
welcome,
You're
buddy.
good, dude.
I'm going to make sure that the stream still looks fine. Oh, yeah, we're good. Okay.
Yep. The last thing that I wanted to address kind of before giving it over, talking about a season units with an agnostic take, season agnostic take, it's so important to know how good a unit is regardless of the season, because we want to give you guys the information so that you can make your own, conclusions about the units themselves, as well as in future seasons. As much as we'd love for you guys to listen to everything we say as the gospel of AOS, we want you guys to have your own conclusions, and when new seasons come out, so you guys can discuss with us, what do you think? How strong is this unit in a vacuum when those rules no longer count and there's new rules?
I'm going to counter on that. I do not want our words to be taken as gospel. I hope we are wrong about every single thing we say, because then we get to learn more and have more discussions. And like as soon as things like stabilize and like ossify, the game gets boring. I want to keep having discussions and keep trying new things. And I like seasonal content for that purpose. Gives us an opportunity to do this again every 6 months. And there's discussions about, is 6 months too much? Is it not enough? But ultimately, it's good to have change in the game. You don't want a situation where like the only change occurs because they release a new battle tome that blows the game apart. Like 40K.
Oh, for you, Chris, in particular, this is the end all be all of AOS knowledge. That's Chris from Kaiju. Great guy. Again, check out kaijugaminglounge.com for AOS stuff, by the way.
Okay, so how many champions are we thinking are going to go on a list? Because there's battle tactics that require 2 champions. Are they good enough battle tactics that you would want to bring at least 2 champions? And like, do you bring 3 in case one of them dies? What do you guys think?
I don't want to start off because I've been yapping away.
Yeah. Mergonk, you just got here. Why don't you start us off? What do you think?
You might be taking care of something.
He might.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
I'll start then.
I will. Oh, okay. You got it.
Yeah,
Join a stream. Just leave.
I think that the lists that I am currently building have at least 2, sometimes 3. And that's not necessarily because of the 2, the battle tactic, lead by example, I think it is, or lead the assault, the one where you have to do 2 Galatian veterans in 2 objectives, or even 2 Galatian veterans on 1 objective. I'm bringing 2 because I want to have access to those battle tactics, and if I can fit a 3rd one in for redundancy, that's great. It's kind of where I'm at. What about you, Dan?
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay. I personally am I talked about this a little bit earlier. My personal views on it is that I'm not trying to change my lists too much to lean into these rules. Because I think that not going any Galatian champions is a mistake, but I also think that focusing on it is a mistake personally. Um, I think that having about 2 is still probably right, and then remembering to take advantage of the other book tactics. Like I talked about this before, I personally am going to be relying on Dracoths and Dragons still to do those tactics that are in our book that are still really good, like taking out a hero, taking out a monster. Um, with the help from our shooting, that's extremely possible. Taking dragons is going to be really important. I think with just 2 GCs already, Stormcast are feeling in a good spot because, like we've talked about before, playing against Stormcast, we tell you guys don't shoot the heroes, don't take out the heroes. And this season, if someone makes that mistake of focusing on our heroes when we're not really caring, as we're going about business as normal, if you will, as much as we can, you still have to play to your strengths. The underlying game is still the same game. So I am taking, the approach of I want to make sure I put the proper weight on my Galatian champions, because in the way, for example, like I play an Ilana a little differently in that I usually only take 2 heroes. I usually just take Imperator and Relictor and just keep that as like minimum as possible from last season. And I'd use those points for like an extra chariot. Now I'm gonna actually put more weight on that third, Galatian champion of having an incanter, having a battle mage. It's going to be smaller adjustments, I think, to lists where possible that are going to make some of the strongest lists. The new rules are cool. I just, I'm cautious about leaning into them too much, personally.
It's fair to take a conservative stance on it, especially when you play Storm Drakes and you have 2 battle tactics that you can score. That you can just ignore the Galatian champion ones and still get a 5 score. But if you're not playing Storm Drakes, or if you're not playing Fulminators, because frankly, Tempesters don't look as good this season because they can't be sharpshooters and they don't have bounty hunters, so it's like all they do is like okay melee damage and okay shooting. It's still a good unit, but like not as useful as it was before. So like if you're not bringing Tempesters, then maybe you're not going Hammers of Sigmar, and then maybe you're not going Fulminators either. Maybe you're bringing like Protectors or Retributors or even Dracolines because they're faster and they don't need to be. If they're not battle line, then it makes no difference.
Yeah, that's not to say that the Tempesters are not good.
Oh, they're still good.
Because they are.
Definitely still good.
Yes.
They're still the same unit. It's just one of the big things that we're running into right now is without the additional damage and without benefiting from any of the rules, there are other units that are beating them out.
Yeah. On the topic of Storm Drakes, we thought last season the seasonal rules were going to be so impactful that Storm Drakes were actually going to get taken down a whole tier. We predicted they would be A tier. It turns out that Storm Drakes are just like Dan said, they're just such a good unit. They just do their own thing. Their defenses are so high. They have the roar utility. They're flying. They're fast. They ignore spells. They breathe mortal wounds. Like they just do everything except really, really high damage. And they do tactics too. Yeah. So it's like they just ignored the season. They just, hey, what battle pack are we playing? I don't care. Here's Storm Drakes, right?
Yeah.
This season, it seems like everything surrounding the Storm Drake spam has been nerfed enough that just bringing Storm Drakes isn't enough. But a block of 4 Storm Drakes as a primary hammer, or like a block of 2 Storm Drakes in a lot of lists is going to be really, really good. So I think they're still going to be S tier. Like we got it wrong last season. We thought the rules would be so impactful. Taking a closer look at this season's rules, it's like, well, how would Storm Drakes play this? You'd lose out on champions. It's like, well, you got the tactics, so you're fine. Just Storm Drakes are still going to be amazing.
Probably still go 2 GCs anyway.
Yeah, you're going to bring support heroes. Stormcast will, High Priest is going to be in every list again. We're not going to go Master Magic because we're not trying to cast endless spells anymore as much with the new costs. So, yeah, it looks like, that's at least one champion. It's really easy to fit a second. Either a Battle Mage or a Castellant or an Imperatant or a Zephyros or an Azuros with the new Quicksilver Draught. I think what this season's going to do for us more than it would the previous season is it's new stuff is available that is really good. Like the fight first stuff is really good for us. The Sworn Bodyguard thing, fighting out of a pin, is really good for castle lists. I'm probably biased because I play Stormcast castle lists. That's my jam, right? I love playing the force the opponent to come to you and then break out of it and score a bunch of tactics on your way out and win the game. So being able to fight in the hero phase with a Sworn Bodyguard, perfect for me. I love it. Being able to fight first defensively with the right positioning and everything, yeah, really good too. So I'm going to resurrect a couple lists that I played a lot in second edition. If you guys like 10 evocators and 6 long strikes, then you're going to have a good time this season, I think. And in those lists, I'm going to run like 3 or 4 champions because I don't have Storm Drakes, I don't have Dracoths. I need those battle tactics and the book tactics. I reliably can't score them. There's going to be a lot of times where, I mean, Redeemers are never going to kill any hero. That's just not going to happen. We're kind of strapped for battle tactics. So in the kinds of lists I play, I'm probably going to bring 3 or 4. I'm going to bring 3 in a Warlord and probably 1 in Galatian Command. And that way I get an extra enhancement and I get the Sworn Bodyguard.
Yeah, it's more of an opening of options. Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. I was just gonna say that a lot of the lists that I've made right now, Paul, are Warlord, and then Sharpshooters, and then Command.
I think that's a good starting point for our list. Is like either you go 4 heroes or you go Storm Drakes. Yeah, that's the choice.
I mean, I think the breakdown between our lists is: are we a sharpshooter list? Are we a list that wants to take advantage of the new Galatian command, or are we just battle regiment and we don't care? And I think that's a question that all armies are going to be posed. And it's like you can tell that with their battle tactic design, they really did mean the book tactics to be used. Yeah, we know some of them are just outright autocompletes. I mean, Daughters of Cain, despite the rumored battle scroll nerf, still has autocomplete battle tactics. They're just not scoring extra points for them.
Morgan, can Daughters really afford to bring 2 Chimera units now, though? Their points went up just enough to squeeze that
Not
up.
in Marathilists, but Marathilists will, just run the normal normal battle tactics and just kill you. Like that's their play. Yeah. And even then, if they play Celebron, which I do predict they will switch to, they do get access to teleports with a command point. Being able to teleport something, 2 things behind your lines and just have them be there for their little behind enemy lines battle tactic that they have, the one in their book. Yeah, it's doable, I think. Having 2 things charged, that's pretty doable for them. Mm-hmm. So, I think people will pivot to, I think the lists that are built for efficiency that aren't really considering the season in mind will use a mixture of book tactics and the tactics that they left behind from last season. And then there's some armies that really want to lean into the Galatian champion tactics. I don't recall, but do they have extra points for Galatian champions doing anything?
There's no bonus points. You just can't do the tactic without them.
That might honestly push people more towards their book tactics, actually. Because if they had bonus points for Galatian champions, it might have pushed or incentivized people to do things or complete battle tactics with them. But then there's some armies like Gargan said literally can't even take Galatian champions. So
what this season is pushing isn't champions, it's hordes, it's infantry blocks. Using 2-rank fighting with no bounty hunters.
Yeah, it is actually the infantry season supported by heroes, which meaning you want your typical infantry army to have sworn bodyguards so they can take advantage of both the battalion and the heroic action.
And because of that, that's where sharpshooters comes in, right?
Yep.
So there's a rock paper scissors balance happening, and I mean you can counter sharpshooter with praetors in theory, but who the heck is going to bring praetors? They're a bad unit. Not going to happen.
Make them battle line.
Yeah.
Battle line for each lord in your army. That's it.
If they were battle line, they would make a unit immune to shooting or a champion, and that would be a nice thing for them. But yeah, that's another discussion I guess we can have when we talk specifically about Stormcast units. Is like the battle line thing is a big deal now because if you have a hero with 5 retributors and those retributors are not battle line and you want to avoid shooting, you have got to stick some vanquishers behind you too, and that positioning gets tight, and you might not want to commit that many resources.
Mirror shield.
Sorry?
Or take the mirror shield.
Or mirror shield, yeah, that's an option. I don't think we can afford the enhancements right now.
No, I don't think
so. We want 2 holy commands and an artifact usually. Yeah. Dan, do you see any good questions in the chat?
Yeah, I was just answering some people because we had a bit of confusion with the command ability. I think people were asking. Let's see. I think I remember. Oh, people asking about artifacts. If Mirror Shield you think it was gonna be important? I think it isn't for the same reason that I talked about with we're still playing the same game we have been, and shooting our heroes isn't that great.
No, and if you really want to keep your hero alive, you can take the aspect that doesn't cost you an enhancement to just get a 3+ revive. All you give up there is the 3 commands once per game, or the count as 10 models on an objective. So it's not a huge opportunity cost. Whereas giving up a Quicksilver Draught or giving up an Arcane Tome or giving up an extra Holy Command, those are a much bigger cost. So Mirror Shield is looking worse. Definitely worse. Not just because of sharpshooters, but also because there's just other ways to keep our heroes alive. And there's always the problem that if, like, we don't care if our heroes stay alive. We're, like, we want, like, ideally you lose nothing and still win the game, but, like, if something's going to die, it's better for a hero to die than the, like, 10 protectors that they're supporting.
Yep. Well, Mirror Shield is a good option for keeping, one of our heroes alive. If you really want to go that route, if you are taking, Warlord Battalion and you want to go for that, it wouldn't be a bad secondary artifact, I don't think, honestly. If you're going for the style that Paul's talking about, and if you have an Azuros that you really want to run around and cap objectives, and you want him to have the counts as 10, for example.
Mm-hmm. Yep, just can't be shot by Sentinels in that case. It's useful, but
it's an option.
Some matchups, in other matchups, it's totally useless. So consider that as part of your value judgment. Okay, I guess next topic is, since we're on it, like, how many armies can really take advantage of sharpshooters? We sort of talked about this earlier. Stormcast for sure, Lumineth for sure. Lumineth do, like, exactly the amount of damage profile. Like, they have the right damage profile for sniping out small heroes. They don't have the, like, Sentinels aren't going to blow up 60 zombies. And they've got ballistas.
Like, it's like they definitely want to take it. I know Lumineth's like one of those pure battle regimen armies, because otherwise they just drop dead on their, just fall flat on their face. But between the choice of taking out 10 Chaos Knights or the Sorcerer Lord that's giving them demonic speed, you have to take out the Sorcerer Lord.
Yeah. Well, think about the Stormcast Lumineth matchup. If they don't have sharpshooters, they can't engage you in melee with a Quicksilver Draught, and they will just lose their shooting to your shooting over 2 rounds. Like, how do you play that matchup without sharpshooters? It's I think they have to lean into it. I don't think there's a choice for Lumineth.
We had the question come up here. And one thing about Lumineth I'd say is that, it kind of goes with the way that I answered this question. The base game is still the same, though. So it is important to still think about, you have to play to your win conditions. You have to play to win, not just play to not lose. So going with this question of, how are we won't we struggle to score tactics without Mirror Shield? The opponent can just kill our heroes turn 1 and 2. I mean, you still have to, play the game, and it's still a bad idea to just go for Stormcast heroes directly. Immediately, at least, right off the bat.
Remember, battle tactics are only 2 points a round. They're not even the majority of your points, because you get 3 points per round from typically, score 1 objective, score 2 objectives, score more objectives. So if you just, like, if they're expending a lot of resources to kill your heroes, and they will be, because it's a significant investment, and we can just whittle down their shooting. Like, Stormcast are really good anti-shooting army because ours can teleport and drop in from reserve. We always shoot first, and that's how you win shooting battles. With that in mind, like, if you're really worried about your heroes getting shot, just kill their shooting. What the Mirror Shield allows you to do is to just know that this hero, you don't have to dedicate resources into keeping them alive. But as soon as your opponent is like, oh, I can't shoot that, okay, I'll shoot the long strikes or the chariot or the fulminators or the storm drakes or the thing that's actually going to win you the game. The battle tactics might win you the game. Killing the storm drake block will definitely win you the game.
Yeah, 100%. That's where I'm at with that. Is the game is still the same game. Don't forget that. Which is why, sharpshooters for Lumineth. I think, I know we had Miguel, prominent, LRA player, saying that he's still probably thinking he's going 1-drop. I don't think it's as clear cut as, they have to take sharpshooters. So it'll be interesting to see for sure. But
matchups where they definitely on it, like a Lumineth player being able to snipe out like a Lord Imperatant or like a key hero is pretty important in some matchups, and others not so much. Like, they're the Stormcast and Lumineth are also the only 2 armies I can think of that want this. Daughters of Cain don't care. They're just glad to shoot whatever's in range. Idneth, I know Chase here mentioned Idneth. I don't think Idneth care about shooting heroes. Like, previously, Reavers are just massed volley fire against whatever targets they have available, because after their Flood Tide where they can run and charge, it was the Sharks that had long range shooting that could potentially take out like a 5-wound hero. Yeah. But it's not a do or die thing for them. It's not what that list is built around. They typically just want to be shooting a screen, charging in with Eels and Sharks, popping High Tide, then doing High Tide again and winning that way. So Idneth is going to be pure battle regiment. They don't even care about Sworn Bodyguard, really. I don't think they do. They just always go battle regiment. Lumina is the only one that I can potentially see going battle regiment. And us, we're taking sharpshooters because there's some heroes we really need to kill. Like we need to kill the source of
I think Lumineth are such a low damage army that they're going to want sworn bodyguards to deal with other horde armies. Being able to fight defensively with I think the 30 warden blocks are going to come back, and they're going to use them to punch their way through zombies and through fire slayers and through a lot of things.
Well, yeah. I mean, not just that. If they're going sharpshooters, they might as well take Stone Bodyguard. And 10 Stone Guard with Stone Bodyguard, now that Bounty Hunters is out of the question, are actually a pretty tough cookie.
Yeah.
They're really good.
Yeah, and giving them extra fight phases, even if they fight last later that turn, I'm going to tell you, most of the time that's not going to matter. If you just kill the thing that's in the hero phase that's in front of you, there's usually not a second target for a 4-inch move unit to engage on that turn. Like, that's not as big. The fight last thing is not as big of a deal as it seems. It will matter sometimes, but not always.
And there's, you know what I mean, there's a deterrent there too, right? Like, you're in combat, you pop the hero phase fight, the Stone Guard annihilate whatever they're in combat with.
Mm-hmm.
And then the opponent's like, I'm not charging anything else into that unit. And they get to do what they want and have that objective.
Yeah, it just gives
on
you...
your turn, so you can't charge something. The hero phase fight is on your turn.
Yeah. No, you're totally right.
You won't be charging anything.
Yeah.
That's the only thing.
You can fight with your hero in your opponent's turn, which is honestly better than it seems. Like if you're using something like an Azeros who has 10 damage per combat phase, surprisingly, the Azeros is one of our better fighter heroes. That's sometimes better than a 4+ to get a command point.
Yeah. It's all options, and I think that's what's really important is to make sure when you're building your list, you leave yourself options to deal with situations. And we're a really good toolbox army, so I think it's good for us to lean into that.
Cruel Boy sharpshooters, oh yeah, totally.
Yeah, this will do it.
They would love to shoot heroes all day long.
Just because they don't have the best
range, because they don't maintain their range when they move.
Mm-hmm. They'll shoot whatever they can. Yeah.
Yep.
And if the only thing in range is a hero, and they can't shoot it, that's a feel bad, right? So Cruel Boys need as much shooting as possible. They need as many targets as possible to give them the best option to shoot because their range is limited. Do you guys think this is going to have like a huge impact on the Ogre shooting? That seems to be really, really good. Not Iron Blasters not being able to snipe heroes anymore.
No.
Iron Blasters just kill everything.
Yeah,
the goal in that army is not to kill heroes; it's to kill everything.
Yeah.
The opposite is also true. Yeah.
But
sorry, Jack.
To be fair, they need the trophy rack to be efficient and reliable, right? Because the +1 hit against hero and monster is how the Iron Blasters are worth anything. If they're shooting at Sentinels and they're trying to hit on 5s, all of a sudden that list just starts to fall apart. It's not looking very good anymore.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, because they're -1 to hit. Yeah, I haven't played the Iron Blaster list against Lumineth yet. But I have gotten a couple of games in with it, and I don't really care about shooting the support heroes. I just blow your army off.
Just kill everything.
Just kill everything.
Yeah, that's thematic. You just shoot everything in front of you. Yeah.
Yeah. The game is still the same game. I think I'm going to be a broken record here. Like you still have to play around the same thing. So it's what was strong before is going to be strong still.
It's the infantry thing. That's what's going to change the most. We're going to start to see stuff we haven't seen since the first season, the end of the zero season, let's call it, where people were pivoting away from monsters and into big blocks of infantry to deal with the monsters. We're going to see a lot more of that.
It's basically like tiny improvements to some factions based on the normal stuff they bring, and then like slight shifts in how you play the actual game. Like what's strong is still strong, but the way they play the game changes based on what.
Muted. Okay. If you guys had to pick, like, what are you most scared about fighting against in the new season? For me, it's like Fire Slayers and Night Haunt.
Night Haunt and Fire Slayers. Yep.
Yeah. Those armies look really, really strong.
They also have heroes that pack a punch, like the Auric Rune Father, even on foot. He's no slouch in combat. He's good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that he can pass off wounds to the Hearthguard Berserkers, who then get their own ward save on top of that.
Yeah. And then even against sharpshooters, that's useful.
Yeah.
Like, when your hammer unit is also we've been using the term bodyguard to mean pass off wounds, but now bodyguard is a new connotation. Maybe we got to think of a new term. But yeah, if your hammer unit is also the unit you're passing wounds off to, sharpshooters is like you don't care about it anymore.
Yeah.
It's like Nighthawk doesn't care because Spirit hosts our battle line, and everyone's taking 6 to 9 of them.
And armies that can't shoot a battlesmith now because they're either not going to take sharpshooters or they just can't. Fireslayers are going to seem uncounterable. I hope you have Roar, and I hope you roll a 3+ because oh boy, that's a rough matchup.
Even Runekeepers, like Runekeeper, like the Orange Runekeeper gets better now because people just used to snipe him before he could pop off that one damage. Now you just always do it.
Yeah, the Flamekeeper, right? Yeah, he's looking better. Magmadrot spam I think is going to be dead, and not because Magmadrot's got worse in any way. It's just like, oh, Hearthguard are playable now. Cool. No bounty hunters. Let's do it.
No bounty hunters.
There are a lot of Nurgle players up here in my area, and I'm actually really concerned about the Blight Kings.
So many dice.
Yeah.
Not
just that, just toughness. 10 Blight Kings is an incredibly tough block to shift.
It is.
How about Volkites? The fact that in Vostar you can be on 2s and 2s on the charge with like 3 or 4 attacks per model, and fighting in 2 ranks with that unit is that's the only thing that was holding Volkites back. Now that they fight in 2 ranks, it's like this is a blender unit. They do so much. Like they're
very efficient. What are they like 170 for 10 models or something?
Yeah, and that's like 22 attacks and 20 wounds, or 21 attacks, I think. Yeah, that's really.
And they're perfect Flamekeeper fodder too.
Mm-hmm. And they rally so well. If you shoot them, they just rally back so many models. It's crazy. It's going to be scary, yeah. The only thing keeping Fireslayers down is that nobody wants to paint Fireslayers. They're just a boring hobby army, and I say this as somebody who has them. They're just not very interesting to paint. It's like you contrast the hair, contrast the skin, paint the metal. It's like you do that, okay,
yeah,
120 times. It's not very engaging. Is there any other armies that are... Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was seeing Miguel brought up that he bought an extra box of Blade Lords specifically for sharpshooters because he thought he might stay in 1-drop. Yeah, Blade Lords are hype. We even considered, like, what if we ran some Blade Lords for, like, a counter bop?
Everything we've talked about here in terms of infantry, battle line for key to victory, all this stuff works on allies, too. So Stormcast could bring 10 Blade Lords and just do a bunch of perfect strikes with their Sworn Bodyguard ability. We can do it.
Kind of neat.
Yeah. We can bring a Lore Seeker too, right? And then just auto-cast a Purple Sun and help all our shooting. And then he becomes the Galatian champion, and then he activates the Blade Lords, and then he can also pass off wounds to Blade Lords because he's a Sonari.
Give them if you get charged, you give them the +1 attack. Does that work on perfect strikes?
No.
Is it a attack profile? No, it's just an ability, right?
I think it's an ability.
I don't remember.
It used to be a war scroll. It used to be a melee weapon. Let me check.
Okay. It could be different now because Star Souls, for example, have their profile, and so it works on them, but it may not work.
Perfect Strike is a melee profile with an attack characteristic of 1. So yes.
Oh.
You just got to survive the combat because they have no fight first, right?
What if we allied them in and they were a sworn bodyguard and we had Quicksilver draw it?
Defensive fight first with 20 perfect strikes.
Yeah. Charge me. I dare you.
Yep.
Oh, man.
What do you think KO will do? KO will just play the same game as they did before. They'll deploy a Purple Sun or Vortex in your field, and now their heroes are not shootable without sharpshooters, which actually makes them a lot better because you have a lot of like neat artifacts and tricks on their heroes to stop you from ever charging their boats. Most notably, like the Etheric Navigator. He picks like a thing within 36 that flies and halves its movement and charge, I think. And then they have the, I want to say it's called the Gale Force Staff that picks a unit within 12 in your charge phase and then halves its charge. So if you drop something like Annihilator 7 inches away, they literally cannot make a charge move that's legal into them.
I don't disagree with everything you said. Against Stormcast, yeah, it looks good. But how do these armies play against like Seraphon or Soulblight when they can't shoot the heroes?
I mean, they were already losing to Soulblight and Seraphon, let's be honest. The truth is, so they just need a new book in that regard. But they do get somewhat worse because their best guns with the longest range and the most rend are the boats themselves. And they will not go into sharpshooters. So which means only their Thunderers and so yeah, it could mean we will see a pivot to maybe more Endin Riggers and Thunderers. I know some of them got a points drop or something this last update. But yeah, other than that, we might see sharpshooters from them. But since they typically want to take 2 ironclads, I don't know. It could go Bat Reg or sharpshooter. They don't care about Stone Bodyguard. They really don't. I don't think.
Do you know what I'm really looking forward to?
Yeah.
My hero's not just instantly dying to Bastiladons.
Oh,
I'm really
yeah,
looking
Seraphon's
forward to
gonna be
that.
insane because they're supposedly the last book to be updated, and now you basically need to take sharpshooters to take care of their skink priests,
Hmm.
and it's gonna be really annoying.
Or just Comet Fall.
No, it's sure.
Comet Fall wrecks Seraphon so bad, it's amazing.
I was thinking like now that if we do move into a horde meta, horde and short hero meta, as I like to call it, dragons become better. The big
Yeah.
dragons, Krondys or
Yep.
Karazai.
Krondys and
become a lot.
Karazai look better, yep. I think Krondys looks better. Karazai still has that like support hero aspect to him, and anytime you consider him, you don't really bring a lot of other support heroes, so you're giving up GCs there. But with Karazai, it's the opposite. When you bring Karazai, you bring as many support heroes as possible, stack everything onto Karazai, and he's not a hero so much as like a hammer. You treat Karazai like a hammer, but you treat Krondys like a support hero.
I mean, yeah, we talked about Krondys like sort of he has to support the army's function, whereas Karazai has to support himself.
Karazai gets supported.
Yeah,
Yeah.
He is the function.
Exactly. Which is why I always I mean we can talk to the moon and back about how Karazai should be lower than Krondys, but now his reach also matters. Because I was talking to Daniel, and we were talking about this earlier. If all these heroes are going to be within an inch of a battle line unit, that makes a lot of interesting interactions for combat abilities, spells, etc. That means previously, if I was playing Annihilators and my opponent was putting everything 3 inches away exactly, now if it's right up next to their battle line, they will take more wounds. It means if I charge a Karazai into their line, Karazai with his 3-inch Golmaraz reach will basically pluck out their hero from under them.
Or the tail attacks.
Yeah,
Easier
or the
to throw
tail
them all into the hero.
So it puts you at a lot of risk. Like Gargans especially, like we talk about how Gargans can't do any of the battle tactics that regard like Galatian champions. All of the Gargans I'm pretty sure have like 3-inch reach. So if your tiny foot heroes are next up to your like foot troops, they will pluck out those heroes.
I don't know how useful that is for Gargans though, because like they're not a super high damage army, so if they're putting attacks into support heroes, it's got to be really, really valuable to kill that hero and not the unit they're supporting, right?
Yeah, that's
I mean, it depends on what they're hitting. It's like, would I take out a Battlesmith so you can rally better? I think I would.
Yeah.
Well, if you're engaged in melee, they're not going to rally at all.
Or if I take out like a Flamekeeper, right? Like is it called a Flamekeeper?
Flame,
The one
yeah,
that like adds a damage. Yeah, like I would try and take him out if I was a Gargan player.
They can't do it with rocks anymore, and that sucks. Because
Yeah,
that was one of the
big
main
deal.
things they did was they whipped 2 rocks at a hero and killed it.
Mm-hmm.
Can't do that anymore. All right, before we move on to Stormcast winners and losers, I kind of just want to really quickly talk more about this command ability that we're getting in this season, because like we ignored the last season's command ability, and we were right to do so because it was terrible. But this one is actually really good, especially if you can fight first. Not with a command, obviously, because you can't receive 2 commands per phase. But I really like this, and I kind of even like this, not just on infantry. Like the obvious choices are like protectors and retributors, like small squads of retributors and then big squads of protectors. But the no pylon thing really makes a big difference. So I'm wondering if this is going to be as impactful as I think, or is it just worse? What do you guys think about this ability? Because I like it, but I'm worried I might be overestimating it.
I don't know how useful it is. Okay, so we considered it because in our specific interaction for getting charged, we have a Knight Azeros and a Quicksilver Drought. Or we have, I don't know, a Castellant that has given something a 2-up save with a Mystic Shield and the Castellant's Light. And then maybe we can afford to use this ability because we don't care about all-out defense. I'm not sure how much this will be used over all-out defense. I think the latter is much better. Because only happens when you get charged and you don't get to pile in. So I'm trying to think of an interaction. It would have to be a unit that you know is not going to die. The pile-in isn't as relevant because either the unit size is really small, so maybe like something like 2 concussors or 5 protectors or even 20 wardens or something. And you don't care about like any defensive buffs in the following combat. So I can see Lumineth really liking this, for instance. Like they just go, okay, I have Shining Company, I have a 5-0 board. You're not going to kill that many, and I'm just going to stand here with my spears and 3-inch reach and just hit you with 3 attacks a warden next when you're done. So it's that kind of thing. It's really good for some units, not useful at all for others, I think.
I mean, protectors with like a Castellan, for example, are going to use this. But I do want to say it is a reactive play, and generally I try to focus on as many active plays as I can. I can't force my opponent to have to charge me, for example. Very often, I know Paul likes to play lists that are generally more like if I shoot them, they have to come to me, and that
I
is
like
a play style that's definitely valid.
I like playing lists that are like I'm gonna give you lots of choices, and they're all gonna be the wrong one. Every choice you make is the wrong choice. That's the kind of style I play.
Yeah.
It is the kind of ability where it like makes you iffy if you want to charge something and you're not going to kill it. Like if I charge, let's say 10 or 15 Hardguard Berserkers, and I know I'm not going to kill them, I know I'm not only going to kill mathematically about 7 to 8, and I do like a full charge, like full send, everything is touching all of their bases, that's when I'd get nervous about this ability. So this will put some opponents on edge when they charge you this will make people think as to how they are charging you. Because if they charge you in a unfavorable position, you can really wreck them on the counter swing. Like if I have, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say we've always said that how you charge is more important than actually making the charge, and this further plays into that, right? Because if you charge with the tip of your base hitting one model and you get all of your attacks in, that's the best case scenario. And then now this reinforces it further because they won't be able to get any value from this command. But it's like there's no opportunity cost for this command because everybody gets it. It's like if I had to pick this and have to give up something to get it, I don't think I'd pick it. But because we just have it, it's like it's hard to say it's bad because it's just there.
I think it's basically like if I'm feeling confident in my +2 to save, protector, retributor, whatever anvil unit I have. Now my opponent really has to consider, is he going to all-out defense when I charge him so I can, full send every model that I have in there and try to hit everything? Or do I hold back something and charge him on an angle so if he uses no retreat, no surrender, he doesn't wreck me on the counter swing? Yeah. Which is a neat interaction. It's just something to think about competitively, I think, when you play this game.
Yeah, I actually really like the dual nature of it, the restriction, right? I would like to see more commands in the game be like this, where like all out defense, it's like gain +1 to save, but take -1 to hit, so that all of these interactions are things that you are thinking about when you go to make the decision in the moment.
I just really hate how this gives some armies like that have like a abundance of CP. Like that's what I really hate. When there's a lot of command abilities in the game that are useful, armies like Seraphon that just generate CP out the butt, they get really good.
Oh, come on.
And Seraphon that is typically sitting on like 5 to 6 CP, they're just gonna be able to use this every turn. It sucks. But there you go.
That's what Skinks needed, right? More attacks.
Yeah, that's what I don't know. Anything with poison needed. Like give 10 Saurus Knights poison and then have something full send into you. Be like, all right, I'm just gonna pop this ability.
If it's not a priority combat, imagine like what's the Quaddle's Claw, Saurus Knights with poison on them, and then you're not killing them first, right? Because they're not that big a threat. You got other targets to fight, and then they just pile in with this command. Well, I guess they activate this at the start of the combat phase, so maybe you're like, oh, now that you've activated it, I'm gonna kill your knights. That's one of the downsides of this thing is it's activated at the start of the combat phase. It's not like
so know when you go to pick.
You have to charge things in such a way where the people can't take advantage of this. Like you'll have to charge at an angle and then pile in and hit them.
Answering some questions from the chat real quick. Cheese Bob asks, what's better, +1 attack or all-out attack? Most of the time, it's going to be +1 attack, right? For most units, especially if they have a mount. This ability obviously doesn't work on mounts, but like +1 attack, let's say you have 2 attacks, +1 is a 50% damage increase. It's only, and +1 hit, usually you go from 3s to 2s, and that's like what's the math? I think it's like a 25% increase there. And that's not as good as a 50% increase on average. There's also the fact that max damage is very different than average damage. +1 hit only increases the accuracy. It increases the average damage you deal, but it is a dice game, remember. And max damage is just usually better. So even if they were both the same average damage increase, having higher max damage is better because you can swing higher and do more.
Yeah.
So I think you'd have to have a lot of attacks for +1 hit to be more valuable. And there's other ways of getting +1 hit, right? We have an Azuros, we have a Toralon, we have, for some units, Aether Wings work. So there's other ways to get +1 hit. +1 attack is rare and is very useful. Is this command ability only on infantry? No, non-infantry can use it as well. You just can't be a hero, a monster, and you can't charge that turn.
Yep.
So those are the restrictions on it. So like fulminators or storm drakes can't. Fulminators can use it, and their riders would get +1 attack. The mounts do not. It specifically says it doesn't work on mount attacks. So okay, I think that wraps up the general discussion, and let's talk what everybody wants to talk about. How are Stormcast looking with this? So quick list of winners and losers. Just our first impressions, what we've been talking about. Big winners. These aren't sorted in any particular way, but I think the big winners are the Knight Azeros is definitely a big winner. Vindictors are looking playable again. I'm classifying them as a big winner. Protectors were good. Now they're better. Evocators were trash. Now they're good. Longstrike Raptors were good. Now they're gooder. Sequitors are playable for a completely different reason than Vindictors. Retribuitors look good. Surprisingly, Castigators are looking okay. We've had a kind of a discussion there, and I've tried them out, and like for 90 points, a squad of 3 is a nice fill in a list, and that's the best thing I can say about them.
Yeah. It's when you think about it, it's like half of a Judicator unit. Is like the best way to think about it because of the points and where they slot in.
I think of it as like 20 points more than an Aether Wing.
Yeah, that's it. It's like, do you have an Aether Wing unit?
Yeah.
Do you have 20 points? Would you give up your speed to get 7 shooting attacks on average per turn? Yeah, sometimes you would.
Yeah. And I like them because, like we mentioned this, like they can put themselves to -2 rend, or they can give themselves an all-out attack. So if you're up against Nighthaunt, putting shots into them that explode potentially and automatically just hit on 2s is not a bad idea for 90 points.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they're a sharpshooter slot. They're a good sharpshooter slot.
Yeah, they can fill a slot easily. Yep, same as Aether Wings, really.
Yeah, it's Aether Wings.
They do benefit from being
shoot.
They do, yeah. If you're fighting against like low save support heroes like a 5 or 6, the Rend 2 just cuts right through that save. Or you can do all-out attack, or not all-out attack, but give them +1 hit in order to negate the Lookout Sir bonus, because I think people are going to remember that Lookout Sir exists again. Hasn't really been that relevant because people just don't shoot heroes, but now we might, so we'll see. Yeah, Stormdrake Guard, I have them listed as losers, but it's like a question mark. It's like, no, they're actually going to do...
No.
They're not getting better. They're going to do exactly the same thing that they've always been doing.
Yeah.
The dragon spam is not going to be very good because you just give up too much in terms of tactical flexibility and champions and versatility. You go all in on this concept, and the point nerfs just make it not as efficient anymore. Yeah. What are you guys liking in this season so far?
I think it's a really neat return. My favorite thing is the fact that I can play an Azeros, which is pretty cool. Like I can actually play a speedy hero unit that does something. Especially him having like the counts as 10, having the charge mortal artifact is kind of how I want to run him as a more independent piece. Like sure, if you want to take the time to shoot him, that's fine. I'm still going to be playing the rest of the game, with my game pieces. I almost want to play the Azeros as a cheaper chariot. Is the way that I want to play him. In that it's a more independent unit that's just going to go off and just do tactics, hold things down. Sometimes it'll charge in, and that's fine. That's probably the coolest thing is I've been reworking how I want to play my game plan.
Yeah,
I like Retributors and Evocators being back on the menu because previously they just weren't. Yeah. Planes cuts and mechanic changes, like that's exactly what they needed, and that's what they got.
Yep.
Evocators have been gone long enough that I think everybody has forgotten how much salt they generated. We will be able to fill all of Varshav with salt after this next season of Evocators. I think people are going to hate them so much again.
We got Kavasuk asking why chariots are a loser. I think that chariots aren't a huge loser. I think they lose out because of the points. Sorry, the points change, and as well as a little bit like what I talked about, like. I'm going to be slotting an Azeros where I usually slot a chariot sometimes, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, I was looking at chariots in a couple of my early lists, and I was thinking I could have a Zephyros and 3 Aether Wings for the same cost as a chariot.
Yep.
And more or less fill the same purpose as a cheap screen and scoring objectives, but I'd also gain another Galatian command, a Galatian champion, which is good for battle tactics.
Battle tactics, yeah.
And I don't think the like 4 chariot list that I was really enjoying last season, I don't think that's going to be very good just because small point nerfs here and there, they all add up. I don't think that's going to be worthwhile. So I think they're not going to like lose a tier or anything. They're still a solid unit, but it's like they're just a little bit harder to use. And I don't think you're going to see like 4 of them in a list.
Yeah, this is the same. The chariot has the same thing that the Tempesters do, right? Like, they are both excellent units. We just don't think that they are going to be as impactful now as they were 3 months ago.
Consider how much. Go ahead.
It's like we talk a lot about infantry and like shooters in this meta right now. It's for the same reason that I think Dracothian Guard take a hit. Like, they're great units, but unlike Dracothian Guard, chariots don't help you complete battle tactics.
Right.
Like, the Fulminator will help you complete a battle. Yeah, the Fulminator will help complete a battle tactic, and you need to babysit chariots a lot because they can't issue commands themselves.
Yeah.
So.
If chariots don't charge, they do approximately 0 damage. They're like a support hero fighting. On that note, how awesome is it that the damage of support heroes is relevant? I never thought I'd see the day that this is a relevant thing that we consider. We're like, how much damage does this hero do in combat? 10? Okay, all right, extra point there. Like the Knight Relictor doing 6 damage in hero phase is a slight on him. But the reason we call the Knight Relictor a winner is because looking at the point changes and the way you're forming your list and the amount of heroes you want, it's actually looking like like you got to squeeze points somewhere, right? If you're bringing expensive stuff like Storm Drakes and Chariots and Fulminators and Long Strikes, you're going to have to find the points for that somewhere else because other things will have to give it up. And then usually the places we find those points were like, that's why we take the cheapest battle line. That's why we consider Vanquishers S tier, because that's the main source of squeezing points. Instead of taking 130 point Vindictors, you shave 20 points off each unit and go Vanquishers instead. Knight Relictor is kind of one of those situations where it's like that's one of the places you start to shave points because you can just take High Priest and then you still have a 3+ rerollable translocation, which is usually good enough, right? And he's still a 6 wound hero. He's still a GC. Like, it's very, very similar to a Lord Relictor. You give up a couple things here and there, but like it's not a bad swap. Other swaps, like, not so much. Like, you're not going to compromise and be like, well, I'm going to swap my Storm Drakes for Fulminators. Totally different units. Right? It's like you want the function of this unit, but you want it a little bit cheaper so you can find the points somewhere else. And that's the Knight Relictor's. That's always been the Knight Relictor's niche, frankly. It's just instead of 5 points, now it's 25, or now it's 30 points, which is the bigger that gap gets between the Knight and the Lord, the better the Knight Relictor looks.
I'll say I really agree with what Stark said with how 1 to 2 chariots are still fantastic, by the way, and other stuff just glowed up. I think that's the bigger thing is that, I talked about how the season doesn't really change how we play because the game is still the same game, but at the same time, you have to acknowledge what, it gives that something like an Azuros a little more weight, or, the chariots didn't lose out too much. We were considering at the end of last season moving them to S tier, right? Like they were all-stars. And then with this season kind of changing things a bit, it's like, okay, the edge has been taken off.
Yeah, you want to find room for sharpshooters. Sometimes you want to find room for veterans, and you want to find room for Galatian command. So it's like all of these infantry, and chariots are not infantry. So it's tough to fill battalions with them. The only choice they really go into is a battle regiment, and like you might not have enough heroes to go in there. So sometimes they're just an extra drop, and it's a little awkward. They don't have any particularly offensive synergy unless they're charging. They're just a solid all-around unit. They're good, but they're not as good as they were last season. So that's why we call them a loser. Last season they were like
I will say, like,
really
with
good.
the Knight Azuros though, chariots do become a little better too, because then you don't have to like issue commands with them. You can just shine your light on something, and chariots will hit it on too.
Sure,
alongside each other.
And the speed of the chariot's really nice for that. Usually, like, you never fight with the chariot first, right? You'll always fight with another unit, and then if it's still alive, you fight with the chariot. Because the impact mortal wounds are the big source of its damage. So that's nice. The Azuros overall is just looking fantastic. The Quicksilver or Tusk Helm both look really good. I'm going to lean into Quicksilver because I like the defensive playstyle, but if you want it, the Quicksilver also works offensively, like we were describing, right? You charge in with Azuros, let's say 3 Dracolines, and then Storm Drakes. And then all of those units can fight at the same time before your opponent has a chance to activate because of the Quicksilver drop and Sworn Bodyguards. Well, I guess those units can't be Sworn Bodyguards.
No,
pick something that can.
I've done this in a Garage Hammer game with my Protectors and Azuros, and then Lao Chan, the up on foot, and they all charge in with a Guard of Saintly Assault, and they all get to fight.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
we've never considered that before because it's like anytime you multi-charge, you expect to get hit back, and that's one of the areas the Chariot shines. Right, is that it has -1 hit the turn it charges, and it's super durable. It doesn't lose any damage or space until you do 12 wounds to it, and it's -1 hit with a 3-up save. So it's just been a nice supporting charger. But now we don't need that roll filled necessarily because we can just Quicksilver to fight with 2 hammers at a time. So it's just like there's so many new options. The Chariot is looking a little worse by comparison.
Right, and this is again, right. This is the big thing that we've been talking about. These units aren't bad. They don't suck. If you play Tempesters, if you play Chariots, if you play Stormdrake Guard, they still do what they say on the box. It's just there are so many other options now that it's really opened our book up a little bit, especially with the point changes.
Yeah, Chariot's going up 5 points is awkward. Yeah.
There was a bit of chatter in the chat about Gardas and his nerf. We put all mounted unique heroes except Gardas. Honestly, Gardas still stonks, guys.
Still great. Like, if you have Gardas and a Lord Relictor, use Gardas and a Knight Relictor now instead. So, that's where you squeeze points, right? Like, you want Gardas, you find the points for it. Yeah.
Yeah, because he went up 20 points. That is a objective loss for Gardas, but he's still awesome.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
I'll be right back.
I think the biggest loss for us is Horgas being going up 30 points. That's what a loss is.
Yeah.
I'm not looking forward to that, especially into Soul Blight.
Okay, so yes, the Soul Blight might be a tough matchup. But other than that, I mean, like, I ran it in my last 3 competitive lists, and it just didn't do a whole lot.
It does a lot against Destruction, Jack. When Destruction brings like 48 wounds of Squig Herds or like 40 Gut Urpas that auto pass Battle Shock with the Nash Troop.
Yeah, are they immune to Battle Shock, or do they just
No, just Inspiring Presence, or being near the Loon Shrine is different, but some things are just like immune, and that's fine. But you don't want them using Inspiring Presence. Like, it's really killer against, like, you're gonna see a lot of Brutes now from Iron Jaws.
That's what I was saying. That's what I was saying, man. Brutes are a thing. Yeah.
But actually, I mean, I'm not too mad about it because 40 points is basically, I divide Endless Spells into, is this basically free? Meaning, is it 40 points or lower? Or is it over 40 points or 50 points? Which means it's a conscious take in your list. And previously it was like a free spell almost, like you almost always found room for it. But now, like, you have to actually like consider it in your list.
Yeah, that's fair. So it went up to 70? I thought it went to 50.
70.
Is it 70?
70, yeah. Because he was 150, or he was 160 with the book coming out, down to 150 as of literally 1 year ago exactly. And then we got completely swung the other way.
Well, no, I know what Gardas is. I thought we were Horrorghast.
Oh, Horrorghast. Oh, sorry. I was reading the Gardas thing, and yeah, I missed that. Oh, bad.
I actually haven't paid any attention at all to what the point cost shook out for the Endless Spells.
Yeah, the Horrorghast is swapping a unit of Aether Wings now, and I'd rather have a body all the time than a spell.
Yeah, I think Gardas is worth 170. I don't think the Imperatant is worth 170. I don't know why they've costed him that high.
They're not the
I think
same.
it's like 150, maybe.
Do you know?
I honestly feel like the Imperatant should come down in points, and if the reason he is pointed is because of Grand Hammers, they could just make that.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I like that. This is a bit of hubris on Daniel on my part, but it's like we're basically the reason they didn't bring down Annihilators in cost, the Grand Hammer ones, because nobody else is playing them. Grand Hammers is seeing a 1% play usage in like the Stormcast meta, so it's literally just us two.
You'd
it's
think
just
they
talking
would,
them up, and
yeah,
you'd think they would want to sell more of them and make them stronger and make them more popular.
Yeah, no, apparently not. Apparently not.
Yeah, and Imperatant's like a 150 hero, maybe 140. About the same as a Lord Relictor.
It feels the same as a Lord Relictor in terms of usage.
Conservative at 150, just to
You know who I'm really liking?
So many units.
Surprisingly, I'm really liking the Lord Veritant.
I've seen a
Because-
lot of talk about him.
Yeah.
Actually,
because he's not a very he used to be a good combat hero. He's not so much anymore. But for 20 points over a Knight Relictor, and sometimes you have 20 and not 30 points, he's a solid upgrade. More wounds, Lord keywords, so you have a longer range on stuff. He can issue holy commands from a further distance.
Free unbind.
And he's got the unbind, and he has a smite. Sometimes you don't want to translocate. Sometimes you want hero phase damage. It's not good. None of these are good things. They're not very useful. But when you have 20 points, would you rather have a triumph or would you rather have that?
Yeah.
I think I'd rather have that sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes. Yeah.
Sandy, we have had quite a lot of discussions about the blow up mortal wound AoE list. So
Yeah, we've been calling that list Comet Fall, and the idea there is you try to just do as many mortal wounds in an area as possible, and that's really, really good against like Seraphon or Beasts of Chaos. Like if they're bringing squads of like 5 to 10 models and a bunch of small support heroes, really, really good. It is completely useless against Gargants, and it is less useful against like Fire Slayers, who are going to bring big blocks of stuff. Nurgle, stuff that has really high effective health in single units. So like block of 4 flies, not going to take a lot of damage there. The trick with that list, I think, is to find the right balance of stuff that can deal with like the Nurgle list, the Gargant lists, the big blocks of like Lumineth actually have a lot of small support heroes. They're going to take a lot of damage from that. But the trick is to find stuff the right balance. And I think we had almost nailed it last season when the Slann was at like 260-ish points, and he could cast the Comet. He's now 290 and can't cast the Comet anymore. So kind of looking rough for that list. I don't know which direction to take it in. Because you could take that to a tournament and have the 5 best matchups possible and just blow them out of the game, be done by like 5 o'clock that day. You know, you're out, you're ready to have dinner. Everybody else is still playing round 3. Then other times you're going to play and you're just going to auto lose on round 1 with no hope of winning. So
you can switch to Arcanum on Griff Charger. Master of Magic.
Yeah, Scintillating Trail, like that's okay, but like he doesn't also cast Comet's Call in addition to that, right? The Slann was useful because he was casting the
Comet's
Comet.
Call was a big thing, yeah.
Yeah. It's like the Slann was just so efficient for what he did for our list. We'll see. It might be worth trying. I think the extra utility of having more champions is good. Not as good as it seems, because like if you have 5 champions, that's almost the same as having 4. And that's almost the same as having 3. Like there's not a huge difference in terms of tactics and scoring potential for a Stormcast army because we're so mobile. For other armies that have to hoof their heroes around manually, that does make a bigger difference. But for us, we can just translocate, or we have a Zephyros, or we can just drop in from Scions.
There's some spells, by the way, that really, really get better with this. Like all heroes need to be within 1 inch of a battle line. And I think it's like, do you guys know about a spell called a Nightmare Predator?
Yep.
Is that the OBR one?
Yes, the
OBR
OBR one. People don't play it because it's got like random movement. It's got like 2d6 movement, but it reaches to everything within 3. And if it's a prey, it does d6. And if it's not prey, it does d3. Having it declare like a small hero as a prey, it's a pretty good spell to have there, especially when like Archon is like extending the range of spells. Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see some of these endless spells. I think Gnashing Jaws went up though a lot, didn't it? Like 20 points.
Yeah, but this spell came down. The OBR spell went
down. But I mean, honestly, Mergant, though, if OBR are going to bring an endless spell, they're going to bring the Shrieker.
Oh, they bring like 3 spells now. Like OBR doesn't do any damage outside of like any mortal wound damage outside of spells. So
and everything there just keeps getting their army gets so cheap that they can just bring every spell.
Yeah, I mean that's their trajectory. With Cruel Boys and OBR just on the trajectory to get cheaper and cheaper until they get really oppressive.
It didn't work for Slaanesh, but maybe it'll work for them.
It's they are getting to the point here. If they take another round of point reductions, especially to Death Riders and Mortek Guard, they are going to be a strong. I've played against my son. He just did a Mortek Guard Catacross list under the new points, and that army was.
Oh God, I forgot about Mortek Guard.
That army is tough.
I hate Mortek Guard.
Went in and fought. My protectors went in, unleashed thy hatred, went into the Mortek Guard, and did nothing.
Yeah, that's something we hadn't talked about. That's a horde unit we hadn't. Bounty Hunters just deleted that unit from my memory,
Right.
Yep.
apparently.
Yes.
Yeah, it did. No, it deleted it off the table too.
Yep.
Gosh.
Yeah. There's a definitely going to be a thing where it doesn't fare well against us because of the effective shooting, but against some of the like corn and whatnot, it's not even going to be pretty. Like it's just going to be bad.
All right, let's talk about, because I'm sure a lot of people want us to talk about this on the stream. Redeemers, and because we've had a lot of discussions about this internally, and I think we've settled on what we think about this. So I think we can express our thoughts. We'll talk more about this in the tier list video that is forthcoming. But let's talk about Redeemers. Vanquishers are at 110, Sequitors and Liberators are at 120, and Vindictors are at 130. Why do we consider Vanquishers S tier? And what do we think the other three? Where are the other three going to land?
I mean, easily, we are a very lean army. We have to, we have to scratch for points where we can to try to bring all the toys we want to bring, and we got to pay the tax, the battle line tax. So it is pretty much get the cheapest battle line. So Vanquishers fill that slot immediately. It's not for their damage. Unfortunately, without Bounty Hunters, they aren't a threat. It is still, a little more damage than some of our other units can be for the points, at least. But it's just a tax, right? Like that's the only reason we're really pushing Vanquishers as far as being like our S tier unit.
Yeah, agreed.
Yep, that's pretty much it. They also have the added utility of like sometimes they do good damage against like 10-man squads of Sentinels. They can actually kill that unit, which is nice. And then Thunderstrike. So if they're just a screen and they die, they roll more dice than a Liberator unit would roll. So,
So it's
So what about the other ones then? Liberators are now at 120. What do we think about them?
D.
Not worth taking.
They have
D, because like I'd rather run Sequitors, who are also 120 now.
The only time you'd use Liberators is to survive against light shooting. That's their niche, is if you're fighting against like 10-man squads of Reavers or 10-man squads of Sentinels from Lumineth, or like a Shark is trying to shoot past you and then run past you. Liberators do that job better than a Sequitur would do, right?
That's fair.
But that's so niche, and their damage is so poor compared to both Sequiturs and sometimes Vanquishers. Is that ever worth using? So I think D might be right based on our classifications, but it feels like a Hammer Prosecutor type of C, like a super specific niche. But maybe it's not even good enough at it.
I don't think so. I don't think that its ability, like the +1 to save, is worth it. I really don't.
Stark
no,
is.
I don't know. I would rather have the 5-up ward in combat.
I
like,
know.
Okay, I'm bad against shooting, but who cares?
You're totally see your point. Prove us wrong, please. I want Liberators to be good. I don't want to retire them.
Stark, are Liberators A because your Liberators are painted?
No, I do see, and it's like, you do like the fact that Liberators, that 3-up save can matter, especially if we go into something that you've got a lot more rend. Sometimes they can hold on for an extra turn compared to like Vanquishers. That can yes, 3-up save battle line is pretty big, and holding something for an extra turn is, that's an 100% increase on the amount of turns they can hold something, right? Like that is something that's tangible. And I do agree that Liberators are still really good. I don't know if I'd call them D tier, but I do think that as far as like playing the overall gameplay plan, it's not as important as getting the points in for the rest of your list. That's that's where I'm at with it. I don't think that Liberators are quite as bad just because they're not as good in like the vacuum. I think that the points, like the whole ecosystem of how we have to build our list, is what's tough.
So here's what I'm gonna say, Stark. When you are running 5-man screens, most of the time, those screens, most of the damage in this game happens in the combat, right? If my opponent is shooting my Liberators, they're either putting chip damage into them and it doesn't matter, whether they have a 3-up or a 4-up save, or they're putting enough damage into them to kill them, at which point it's rare that 1-point save is going to make a difference. So if you look at your screens dying to junk in the combat phase, a 3-up save increases your overall resilience by like 25%. A 5-up ward increases it by 50%. And sequiturs do more damage for the same point cost.
It can depend.
The 5-up ward is nice, but let's say you're running Gardas, which I think a lot of our lists will, then you just have a 5-up ward anyway. So it's
If
very,
you're
very...
within 12.
Yeah,
right?
there's very specific situations
Yes.
where a Liberator is a solid choice. And that's why I think it's a C tier. I don't think it's D. It's hard not to be too upset about it, because like they were just the cheapest S tier for so long. It's
It was really nice when they were 115 compared to like Vanquishers 110, because you could at least kind of see. Because I think I agreed more with Stark when they were 115, where like I would still probably use them.
Yes.
Because getting and like I talked about, it is a 100% increase in the amount of turns they can stay alive against a lot of units. It actually is. Like they can hold something off more than Vanquishers can on a 4-up save. The 3-up save is not something to scoff at. But with a 10-point difference, now I'm starting to eat into my budget.
You got to find points somewhere in this army.
Yep.
It always feels like, and Redeemers are the easiest place to find it because they're just speed bumps. They don't have a huge impact on the game one way or the other, unless you start reinforcing them. When you start reinforcing them, then that actually becomes a point where you don't shave points. You go Vindictors instead, because having a 3+ base save on a squad of 15 Vindictors is a lot more relevant than having a 4+ with a +1 on Liberators, right? So Liberators are in a weird spot where it's like, if you want the cheapest, you go Vanquishers. If you're paying 120, you're probably better off going Sequitors for the higher damage potential in the ward and combat. And then if you're actually committing to Liberators and you want a defensive durable unit, you go Vindictors instead. And Vindictors in a Sworn Bodyguard are very good.
Yeah, it's not bad.
They're good. 15 Vindictors in a Sworn Bodyguard are good.
It's definitely a situation where the point spread, I think, is too big. I don't know. Would you guys do... How would you feel about 110, 115, 120, 125?
I think just make Libs 110 and make Vindictors 120.
Yeah.
I think that fixes it.
Yeah.
Because if you make Vindictors 125, yeah.
Yeah.
No, you still have the same problem with Libs at 115 and Vindictors at 125. It's still the same problem. It's the same points difference.
Yeah. If Libs cost the same as Vanquishers, then it's a viable swap to be like, oh, I don't want the sometimes damage and sometimes Blaze of Glory. I'd rather have +1 save. And then vice versa. Yep. I don't want +1 save because I'm just going to get run over anyway. I would rather have the extra Blaze of Glory and extra Horde damage. So I think those two could both be 110, and I think Vindictors can be 120, compete with Sequiturs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Stark, I could see that. All Battleline are solid options for lots of lists this season. I could see that. And maybe, by that definition, for us, a C tier unit is competitive. Maybe Liberators belong in C.
In a Gardas list, maybe. I'd still
least.
only ever take Banks or Sequiturs, I think.
That's fair.
How are we feeling about like Dracoths versus other hammers? Like there's always the comparison between like even if we use 10 Protectors, we could be using 4 Fulminators instead. It's not that big of a point. Well, it's a bigger point difference now than it was before, but there's the option. The speed is it relevant still? Are we liking maybe Dracolines then if we want to start leaning into speed now that they're the same cost as Fulminators? Maybe a squad of Dracolines can replace 2 Fulminators in a list? How are we feeling about the speed of our hammers? How much do we want to take advantage of the Sworn Bodyguard thing versus how much would we rather just have a faster unit?
Yeah, I'm more likely to take some Dracolines, some Cats for that. Just because, especially like, ironically, this is kind of a weird take, but the fact they don't lose as much once you kill a model off, and then the amount of like kind of mortal wounds you get randomly from a lot of like casters like Tzeentch and such and Skaven. I kind of like how the distribution of wounds of Dracolines a little more, and the more speed that they have. Because that difference in speed is quite a lot. People think, oh, from 10 to 12 it's not that big. It's it's a significant difference. It's a 20% increase when you really look at it, right? I think I'm more likely to take some Dracolines than Fulminators if I'm taking a min unit, at least.
Yeah, I agree. I think that now that they are the same point cost, right? They're the same point cost, right? 240.
Yeah, 240 for Dracolines, 240
Yeah,
for
yeah, the
Foams.
same point cost.
So it's absolutely worth discussing or considering now what a min-size unit of Fulminators was doing in your list. If you are bringing a min-size unit of Fulminators to like kick a Gargant below half health, Evocators can probably get it done with a little bit of help, and they're faster, and they've got more wounds, but they have a worse save.
But they can use Loudshot.
But they can use Loudshot. Yeah. So there's like this huge thing where if
they're wizards.
Are bringing, kind of. They're like.
The unbind is what matters more than the cast. Just saying.
I know it is. I know it does. But yeah, like if you are bringing them as a fast hammer unit, now there's a consideration between Fulminators and Dracolines. If you're bringing 4 Fulminators, you're bringing 4 Fulminators, right? Like that's what you're doing.
Yeah, so. I was talking more in my Dragons list. People probably saw if you're looking at the Discord. I was putting in a pack of Fulms as a min unit. That's more of what I was talking about, where I'm just putting in a min unit of Fulms. Right. I'm not in hammers. I'm not counting them as a battle line.
Right.
I'm using them for their speed and their the damage help.
Yeah.
So that's more what I was talking about. I know Noah was saying Fulms are still best damage mobility, battle line hunters. I think that hammers. I think that they are objectively better than Dracolines, but not in every situation.
Not strictly.
If that makes sense.
Not strictly. Their damage is nothing does the damage of Fulminators, and hopefully nothing will. Hopefully that stays as the highest damage we see in the game. Nothing will beat a pack of 4 Fulminators with +1/+1, and God forbid blessed weapons as well. Just smashing everything in their path on the charge. But the problem with Fulminators is that they can get stuck in bad combats against hordes, especially. When you're stuck in bad combats, those Fulminators do not look very good. So I don't know if the 4 block is going to see play this season. I think you're way better off going 2 Fulminators and then a block of 5 Retributors and a Sworn Bodyguard. Yeah. And then that way they can fight through pins, whereas Fulminators have trouble with that. I think versatility is going to play a bigger role. We will want a better mix of cavalry and infantry than we had previously, where before we would just go shooting and cavalry. Or shooting and infantry, right? You pick one or the other, and then you add in some faster, Aether Wings or whatever to control objectives. I think now bringing a mix of infantry and cavalry will be a good thing.
Yeah, I think I'm very much supportive of the idea. If you are bringing 4 Fulminators, consider bringing 2 Fulminators, 3 Dracolines, and augmenting the Fulminators' damage output with a different support unit like Raptors, crossbows, something like that. I think that the 4-pack of Fulminators, whatever you charge, will die. Mm-hmm. That is a given. But then they get countercharged and they sit there and that damage output is no longer impressive. Whereas if it's just the 2, you don't care. It's not a quarter of your life.
Yeah, and now that we can actually fight with multiple units in the same turn once per game with Quicksilver Draught, that's a potential. Then the squad of 2 Fulminators is looking better and better. We may need the damage of 4 though. I said maybe it won't see play, but how else are we going to break through crazy amounts of wounds in a Hearthguard army or OBR, right? If they start bringing 30 bricks of Mortek again, 4 Fulms beats that really, really well. Nothing beats it like Fulms do. So, I don't know. It's tough. I kind of want to lean towards 2 Fulms and 2 Dracolines, or 3 Dracolines instead, but we'll see. I have to wait and see.
Yeah.
I guess we can round out the discussion here by talking about everybody's favorite units. Let's talk about these 2. I think we can finish the stream off on this. Castigators and Ballista. They're both Sacrosanct Shooting. Let's talk about the Ballista first, because I think the Castigator is a bit of a longer and more nuanced discussion. Ballistas are still too random. They can't be sharpshooters, which was actually their main thing, right? Like a couple D6 shots at a support hero on like 2s and 2s, Ren 3. That was nice. You could just snipe out small heroes, but the fact that they can't be sharpshooters, they can't even do that anymore.
Right.
They did get a 10-point drop, but I still don't see myself ever using them. No disagreement.
I mean,
No.
it's hard to disagree with you there. You know, like ballistas can't even be sharpshooters. You know, like they just lack flexibility in a lot of ways.
They're 9 wounds. Like they're so weirdly durable. Can we bring them as like
efficient
as an anti-shooting piece? Is that a thing for us?
We already do anti-shooting really well, though. Like we've talked about this before. Like inherently, Stormcast armies do shooting very well.
Yeah.
So I don't know that it's it's really a hole that we have that needs to be filled, and especially not like this, and not with the amount of points conservation that we have to do. Like that feels like a luxury, if anything.
Maybe if the rapid fire was on 3s and 3s instead of 2s and 3s, or something.
I mean, yeah, if it was
help.
buffed, we'd have something going on.
Yeah, not great. Okay, so then let's talk about Castigators, because we did say how we consider them a winner, and I think I can explain. Why and why they wouldn't be a winner. Castigators are a super weird unit in our army because we have really really good shooting in long strikes and in crossbow judicators. Crossbow judicators are the obvious comparison here. For 90 points, you get 3 Castigators, so you can reinforce that. You get 6 for 180, while 5 crossbow judicators would be 190. Castigators can't use Thunderbolt Volley if they're reinforced, just like every unit, so that's not a consideration. When they unleash Hell, they can't channel their weapon, so they're always unleashing like the worst profile, which is they don't have the Ren 2. And the issue with them is that they're not really high impact, and they're not really efficient to buff. Like, you want to empower them, but that means for each squad of 6 Castigators, you would need a squad of either 3 Dracolines or 5 Evocators, but you're not going to use 5 Evocators, you're going to use 10. So how many squads of Dracolines and 10 Evocators are you going to bring? Like, maybe 2 at most. And then you'd bring max 12 Castigators. And then at that point, you don't have any battle line slots. So, like, replace all those Castigators with Judicators with crossbows, and your list just looks better. Frankly, just almost strictly better. And so you start thinking, well, if they're not super high impact and they got all these issues in a squad of 6, what about just a squad of 3 as like a cheap, 3-man 90-point shooting unit? And I think that might be their role, right? When you have like 3 Aether Wings and you just want to swap them out, you have 20 points, and you don't want to swap something else. 20 points could get you a squad of shooting slow Aether Wings with roughly the same footprint. And doing a couple extra points of damage, that's not a terrible niche. Not very good. Probably not worth casting Empower on them. So I don't know. What do you guys think about Castigators? Those are my unfiltered thoughts about them.
I would still rather have Aether Wings in pretty much every situation than a set of Castigators. Yeah. I'll be honest. The utility and the fact that I'm probably going to be taking long strikes more than I have been before, compared to like crossbow judicators, is definitely big there.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think I would ever trade out a unit of Aether Wings and 20 points towards a Triumph for a 3-man squad of Castigators.
Mm-hmm.
And if they get too cheap, as we've all said, that's bad for the game because it becomes this spammable meme where you've got just bricks and bricks and bricks and bricks of these things. I think what I'd really like to see is the War Scroll get an update and to give them a role that's useful.
I think it would be cool if every shot they did had a chance at exploding, and then it like always exploded. Like if they had their bless thing, like the 6s explode, this would be a good starting point at least. That was always active, and then if they were fighting death, it was always max 3 shots. Or like instead of death, what if it was like they're shooting a unit with 5 or more models, so they become like an anti-horde shooting unit, which is currently a niche that we don't fill right now. We don't have a unit that specifically gets better when shooting at hordes. So that would be an interesting one. Which kind of makes sense. Like, they're firing grenades. That's actually what they're doing. Like, their crossbows have little, like those little vials have have Dracoth breath, like lightning breath swirling around, and when they hit stuff, they explode. They're shooting their grenade launchers. They're fantasy grenade launchers.
So what we've seen in Sylvaneth is D3 mortal wound explosions, right? I would like to see the Hurricane Raptors be the anti-horde volume shooting, kind of the way that Vanquishers are for melee, and I would like to see Castigators do D3 mortal wounds.
That's not a bad idea.
Because I think that would be really thematic and cool, and then you can just point them appropriately.
Maybe Hurricane Raptors can be like their shots always double, but if they hit a unit with 5 or more models, they triple.
You would probably need to go 10 or more models. Use the same trigger condition that the Vanquishers have.
Oh, okay. So, well, Vanquishers have 2 trigger conditions: one for 5 models and one for 10.
One for 5 and one for 10. Yeah. Just give them the same trigger condition.
So Hurricane's just complete nonsense at shooting anything without 5 models. Once they hit 5 models, they double. 10 models, they triple.
So sure,
that could work.
Yeah.
I'd be down for that.
Because that's the thing right now, right? Is that they're too fragile, and crossbow adjudicators do it better. But if this kind of the way that the Raptors are the silver bullet to these really, these 14 wound monsters and stuff like that, if the Hurricane Raptors did it for hordes, that would be really cool. It would be a really interesting niche, right? So like your adjudicators are your basic stock infantry, and then we have all of our shooters, and then we've got all of these specialty shooters that excel in one particular area.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool. The chat is saying Castigators should ignore wards. That would be thematically appropriate because they are ghost hunters, right? So that would work. I'd like that.
Yeah.
Castigators are good for deep striking, taking an objective, and forcing your opponent to waste resources on a 90-point unit. Yep, exactly. That's exactly, I think, Adam Friday, you nailed it. I think that's the niche where they're going to lie, is they are a cheap, useless unit. You don't care how much damage they do. If your opponent puts resources into them, they're not putting it into the units that matter. They hold objectives and still do something. Kind of like how sometimes we would take units of 5 Skybolt Judicators, and they would sit on an objective and just ping damage 24 inches away for the rest of the game, because that's more useful than having 5 Liberators stand there and do literally nothing. Previous editions, that was worth like 30 points. This edition, is it worth 75 points? Or no, sorry, 80 points over Liberators now.
Points.
Not so much, right? But what if you had that same kind of style, but much cheaper? So 90 points is kind of an interesting point value for that unit. I'm going to try them. I'm not expecting much, and I'm hoping to be pleasantly surprised.
If you're gonna go that route, would you think that the Gryph-hounds, being 6 models, would be better at it?
Well, they compete with Gryph-hounds. No, Gryph-hounds don't shoot.
I know.
And instead of Gryph-hounds, I'd rather take Aetherwings every time.
Yeah, no, agreed.
Flat out.
Agreed. Yeah. Gryph-hounds are not going to be useful until they are the same price as Aetherwings.
Yep. Okay.
You chop in half, but whatever.
So, closing thoughts on Season 2. I don't think these champion rules are going to be... they're not going to create some small hero meta where we're always going to see 6 heroes in a list and they're going to be 5 champions. We're not going to see that. What we are definitely going to see is infantry, big blocks of infantry, and sharpshooters to kill the heroes that support them. I think that's where this is going. It's being packaged as a champion meta. It is going to be an infantry meta instead. And it should be interesting, but also terrifying. If you hate playing against Mortek Guard and Hearthguard Berserkers and Night Haunt and 60 zombie squads, maybe come back in a few months and see how things shake out. But overall, I'm pretty excited though. I hate playing against those things, but the game's more interesting when they exist. If the game is always just elite units fighting elite units, it's not very interesting. So it's going to be a nice change of pace. Final thoughts on the season, guys? The first impressions, I guess, not final thoughts.
Yeah. I really like this season. It has a lot more design, philosophy and thought put into it. clearly than last season did. Last season just felt like, well, let's just throw this roll out. And we need the, generic, like something that counters this counterpoint for it. Let's just do +1 damage. And it's like, let's just throw that out to everybody. That didn't seem very well thought out. This seems to have a lot more thought put into it, and more appropriately than last season. The last season, ironically, I was talking about how the same armies are going to be strong. The same things that are going to be strong this season as they were last season, but just a couple modifications. This feels like GW embraced that, where they know like the base game needs to have somewhat of a stability to it, and it will this season. Where the things that you needed to do before, you still need to do, but with a small twist. And I think they did this season really well that way. I'm going to be a super broken record with that. Like this season, more than the last one even. It's the same game, right? You still got to play to your strengths, play to win. Don't just play not to lose, especially with the GCs. Don't try to add 4 or 5 just to, get those tactics in. You need to get tactics in, but there's other ways to get those tactics, and you still have to play the game. Yeah. Sorry, Murgog?
Just play your current GCs better. Don't necessarily add more.
Yeah.
Test some, see if you need one more, that sort of thing.
Yeah, maybe add a Zephyros to your list if you have 100 points. That's like the extent of where I'd go with that.
Yeah.
It's not going to change much
like where
for
I'm
us.
going. Yeah, like where I'm going, like I'm probably swapping out a Chariot for an Azuros in some of the lists I've been thinking about. It saves me some points, and it can do a lot of the similar things that the Chariot was doing in my list for me, right? Like still look at your list that you have that you've already been playing, that you have experience with, because in the end we can net list and talk, like this is the best list. In the end, the list you have the most experience with, are comfortable with, is going to do more for you. If you can find tweaks to it that incorporate these changes, like what I was talking about with the Chariot, swapping it out for an Azuros for a very similar role, then you will find a lot more success than trying to just reinvent the wheel. So that's just my parting thoughts to you guys as we start this season off, or will start it off. Not technically out yet.
Oh, and rest in peace, Bastion. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you didn't get a points cut at all. It's weird.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, it's real bad.
It's weird because Andrasta would costed more than him, and then they clearly thought Andrasta needed a points cut bad enough, but he didn't. Like weird, really weird.
Maybe this will be the justification they need to drop him down to what he should be, which is around 240.
Yes, no, he needs to be where the Light of Eltharion is.
I was gonna say 260, but to be generous, but yeah, because he has a ward, which is pretty significant. And I guess like if people are bringing hordes back, then he's good because he does kill like one model and then lives.
Assuming you don't die first, right? That's always his problem. It's like the hordes that he would be fighting would just kill him because they do so much damage.
He can't stand up to witch elves.
He's not durable enough.
How much is Andrasta now? Is she like 280?
280.
Yeah, he should at least be below Andrasta. I don't think he should be above.
Well, like we talked about with when Andrasta's points went down, she's only as good as how much stuff she's reviving every turn, right? So like her point cost isn't as relevant as the rest of the list, and her going down is nice because you can fit more stuff. So I think Andrasta might be a little bit better than she was last season. She might actually still be
better.
Especially if you're bringing back infantry, like 10 evocators, like being able to auto pass battle shock and then revive an evocator turn. Pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
Great.
Remember that
it's
list?
Just not enough. It's not enough.
Remember that list we had, which was like 2x5 Retributors and then 10 Protectors and Andrasta and Shooting, and then like Aether Wings? Like that, that list can work, I think. It's not the best list, but I think it's more playable than it was last season.
Like going Knights Excelsior, instead of having a ward to keep your models alive, you're just bringing the models back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 3+ save is a good battle line. 15 wounds on a 3+ save, that is not trivial to cut through.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just reviving every turn, even while in combat. And then you have an Azuros with a Quicksilver to fight first with one of the Retributor squads. So, yeah, should be an interesting time. Yeah. Okay. Thanks everybody for tuning in. In case you joined late, please check out our Sequitors painting contest in the Discord server. Right now, we are pretty interested in using Sequitors, and we want to see them painted up. Support Kaiju Gaming, our sponsor. We don't mention this often enough, but we do have a Patreon account. If you guys are interested in like getting the slides from all our presentations, a private list workshop, voting on what videos we do next, please feel free to jump to our Patreon account, which is linked in the description. Any other shout outs we want to do?
Yeah. join our Discord.
Oh yeah.
We talk so much about all this, all this stuff that we talked about on this live stream. A lot of our regulars in Discord pretty much know. We've tried to save a couple things, of course, and a lot of discussion, but it's a good way to talk with other like-minded people. Really awesome. Our community is our strongest point for us, to be honest. We don't have the highest production value. We're we're okay at talking about the game, but our community and being able to talk to you guys every day is so cool. I learn a lot. We get a lot. We ask for your battle reports. Our battle reports channel is my favorite channel because it's the one where I get to see how you guys actually take what we talk about and put it into action. So definitely join our Discord. It's a lot of fun. Please support Kaiju. They have really awesome product. So our merch is on there. Supporting them is directly supporting us, and they deserve your support because they are an awesome group of guys. They are I have so much that I owe to Carlos particularly. Yeah, he's been amazing bringing me into the game in general. So huge shout out to them. And yeah, join our Patreon. We hope to interact with our Patreon people more, especially with the season coming in. Private chat, and we talk a lot. It's a good time.
Yep. Gonna second the Kaiju thing. If you guys buy enough dice and rendering sticks, we can buy Morgonk a new mic, and he won't sound so terrible anymore. And also, Dan, when you talk about low production value, you see the new logo in the corner that nobody's brought up? How cool is that?
Oh no, people have brought it up.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, no, people were talking about it. Yeah, I love. They're like, oh, I love the new banner. Yeah,
sick.
It's good stuff.
Awesome.
Big shout out to my boy Doug.
Okay.
All right. Well, I want to thank the 65 people who have sat through and listened to us talk for 3 straight hours. You guys are rock stars. And as always, please subscribe, share us with your friends, pass that link for Discord around. We always appreciate everything that you guys do. If you're watching this after the fact and you disagree with something that we've said, you think we've missed something, please put it in the comments below, and we will have a look at it.
Yeah, no, like I said, I hope we're wrong about everything, just so we can have more discussions about this. The whole point is just to talk about this stuff. That's all I want out of this. I don't want to be right. I just want to talk. Okay, thanks everybody. Have a great rest of the day or night wherever you are. Sunday streams, I like them. We're going to keep doing them. Take care.
Yeah.
Take care, guys.